Happy solstice, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. It's so good to see some of you on already. Um, I am checking my camera and my sound. I have actually a new some new light, and I just want to make sure that everything's okay and in the picture, and I think it is. If for any reason there's any sound issues, please let me know. I just want to say I'm so happy to be here today. I say that every time and I always mean it. But happy solstice. This video and some of the energy coming in for today is so beautiful and so positive and so good for humanity. And so before we get started, I'll just remind you what we're doing here and what we've been doing on this channel. This is Shannon Port from the Goddess Report and from Art of the Feminine on Facebook and Instagram. And we are doing what's called the Esoteric Feminine Codes for the next year. This is a Divine Feminine lecture series. And so it's based on the Divine Feminine wisdom. Really, really powerful wisdom coming in. I already have the next lectures planned out, and I just have to say that the generosity of her spirit is so rich and so ready for this planet right now. And so it's been about a month since the last video, and I think they're going to pick up now. I think I'm going to be able to space them. I'm not sure if it will be every week or every other week, but the videos are getting ready. The live streams are getting ready to move along at a more rapid pace. And so if you're not subscribed to a newsletter from me, I don't have a link in the description, but I'll come back and put one. You can either follow me on Instagram or on Facebook at Art of the Feminine. Those links should be down there, and you'll see when we're going live. And also make sure to hit the notifications, because if you're the type that wants to have it pop up on your phone when we go live, make sure you go to the YouTube channel, Shannon Port, and hit the notifications. So the other news is that my website, Art of the Feminine, is now active. It's been deactivated for a long time. In fact, if you went there, there was a couple paragraphs. All of the pages were taken down. There's a long reasoning behind that, but it's been quite a while. It's been actually over a couple years, and so maybe even longer. So my website, Art of the Feminine, is where you can find everything. It's like there's still more that I can put up on Art of the Feminine, but if I won't have to talk about whatever I'm teaching, whatever trainings are available, and I have 2 or 3 up right now, you can find them at artofthefeminine.com. Okay. Today, I'm going to let you know what we are doing so you have an idea. So these lectures have been over 3 hours. This is a bit different. I was doing astrology for a while, and so the last 2 lectures, Mars and the Mother Mary mysteries and the Magdalene mysteries, are both about 3.5 hours, and they are time stamped. So if you go to Shannon Port, and please subscribe if you're new and seeing this, Shannon Port YouTube channel, and they're time stamped. And so for that 3.5 hours, everything we talk about, like the podcasters do, is put into little mini chapters. So you can, if you can't join us today for the whole time, you can return to them, and you'll be able to find what you're looking for. And there's a lot. And so I really invite you to, some people have told me they're watching every video over like 2 or 3 weeks because there's so much, they're so rich with archetypes and with correspondences. So please know that. Today, what we are going to do, we're going to do some rituals. We'll be doing the Solar Venus prayer. And I'll tell you about that, the Solar Venus prayer. And we'll also, a little later on in the video, be doing the Light Body Sun ritual from Light Body Yoga. So if you've studied with me, you know this is a really powerful ritual. It doesn't take a long time. This is a ritual that I used as an actress every single time before I went on stage. So this is a ritual that lights you up and really synchronizes you with your higher self and with the light of the sun, with the light of I am. We'll be doing that a little later on. I have so much, just have to say, there's so much. I've got different screens open. I've got stacks of lectures. I have an email I sent to myself with 48 entries. So there's a lot here today. But I always just trust that it will come the way that it's meant to. I just get so excited to speak on these topics. So I've been teaching on these topics publicly for about 20 years. And this platform, and you'll see if you go to artofthefeminine.com, is really built up. And we have a school for it as well. So, what I'm going to do today also, and then we'll dive in, I'm going to talk. I've been doing this every video. I'm talking more about my personal lifetime and some of the events in my life that have led to being a teacher of this wisdom, which we call here the divine feminine wisdom. I'll wait maybe an hour into the lecture where I start to talk about that. And I think it will probably take 30, maybe 45 minutes, but I'm going to go through some of the events. I do that not to highlight myself, but to give some um, validation to what I'm doing by teaching here, and also to ask you to look at your own life and look at the archetypal blueprint that you carry on this planet. And you will see that our lives are rituals and we live out that template. And in this case, and in my life, it's a goddess ritual. And there are certain archetypes that show up. And when you're able to see it, it's profound. The universe works in archetypes. And when these archetypes come to you, it's an activation in your field. We teach here the divine feminine archetypes as the dormant packets of energy within us. But there's the inner mysteries and the outer mysteries. We also have the inner reality and alchemy, as well as the materialization of it in the world of form. And so, again, welcome to the Cancer solstice. It's summer solstice where I am in the northern hemisphere, and we will be talking also about there is a Capricorn full moon tomorrow. Cancer and Capricorn are opposite each other. They are the father and mother archetypes in the zodiac. And so there's really potent information we're going to talk about. I'm going to take one look down and then we will dive right in. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be here. So, okay. I hope, all right. Hope everything's right. Okay. I'm going to take a peek down. So good to see you. Liberty Rising and Deborah, and Mary, Patricia, River Moon. Nice to see you. Dropping in from Mountain View, Tomino Land, California. Oh, let me know where you're at for solstice. And if you are, and I see people who are having solstice in the Southern Hemisphere, it's perfect. We did for summer solstice is the art of the feminine high holy day. This is our high holy day, and it kicks off our season. Our high holy season is summer solstice, the Cancer solstice, Mary Magdalene's feast day, and then we peak at Lionsgate. So we're in the window of the high holy days of art of the feminine. But at winter solstice, we also did a Venus activation. We did the new Venusian current, and I linked that in the video so that if you're having winter solstice and you want to go into the womb, that will be linked underneath. Maria, so nice to see you, and Sonia and Trish and Mary. Neil, lovely to see you. I was thinking about, actually, you popped into my mind because I'm teaching a lot to light body woman now. So the focus, there's been a high focus. The blueprint and the template for my life and for this stream is healing the collective woman. And if you listen to the original Art of the Feminine podcast in those 65 episodes, there's a very heavy concentration on that. However, it's for all human beings at this time. All human beings I've done plenty of studying on the man in my lifetime, and it is through it is through the woman that we all enter this planet. The specific mysteries that I've come to live, which I'll be talking about in about an hour, are around fertility and love relationships. And so in my orientation is a male-female relationship, deep, deep healing and revelations through love. We cannot go forward in this world without healing love. It is the platform of life. It is the platform, it's meant to be the platform of new life. And that's why my work in fertility has, which I've lived, it's not words to me. These have been actual initiation and rituals that have been lived, is is so important in our world at this time. And so I'll be sharing some of that today. But I just want you to know, even if you're in a male form, if you're non-binary, it's important for us to understand the binary. It's important for us to understand the egg and the sperm, as we say, because they are the potencies of the entire universe. And in this world, without that, we cannot heal the astral level. We're going to talk about Lilith today, but also Lilith will come over into her next. There's two aspects to Lilith, and we'll be talking about Lilith again in the next video. Today, we're talking about light body Lilith in the lighter side. And in the next video, we'll be talking about more of the lower elemental side, which is also very positive. But we will be talking about the transmutation of astral Lilith. And that's how we work with the astral body at Art of the Feminine and in Light Body Woman. We work with Lilith as the moon, as the dark moon, and as the astral form that we all carry within us, our shadow form. And so this work is potent and relevant for everybody. And of course, even as I'm talking about the woman and the mother and the holy daughter, it will apply always to the Holy Father, the Holy Son. And in fact, today's Capricorn and Cancer. So happy solstice. We just had in May. So I've been talking about the Christos mysteries. I have some final thoughts that I will bring in, very real, a little bit critical today to kind of balance out how we've been talking about religion, the various religions of Christianity. And we'll be talking about some information came in really strong about that I want to share today. In May, I think it was the 19th this year, but is the Christos or the Christology holy day of Pentecost, or holy day, yes. And so if you saw the thumbnail on this video with the golden chalice and the white sun, which is really the Eucharist in Christianity and in the Catholic or Catharic ritual of communion, the Eucharist, the bread and the wine. On this thumbnail for solar Venus is the risen sun. For Pentecost, it's the white sun of the Holy Spirit or the Divine Mother. It's even called Whit Sun I believe it's the Anglican Whit Sun or White Sun in the Anglican Church. But this is really working with the solar ELOHIM, the ELOHIM spirits of the Holy Spirit. And so I wanted to tell you a little bit about that before, and then we'll go into a prayer. Okay. All right. I think we're ready to go into the Venus mysteries now. Welcome to the Venus mysteries. Art of the Feminine as a platform is based on the archetype of Venus. And it was over, which I'll refer to when I talk about some personal events through my life where I started to understand both in exoteric astrology and esoteric, as well as I work Kabbalistically, that Venus, and then I was told, which I'll reference these things, that I had come in as an embodiment of Venus in this lifetime. And so it's my mission to speak very specifically on the Venusian mysteries of the collective and also of the woman. and the Magdalene, and the Mother Mary. All right, so the solar Venus prayer, which we will kick off with, is the I am in the 7 directions. And so I was just told that we are calling this, I often refer to it as the light body sun or as the chalice, but we're calling the I am in the 7 directions now, christening it at the solstice, the solar Venus prayer. And there's a reason for that. We've always called it solar feminine, but we're calling it the solar Venus prayer because 7 corresponds to Magdalene, and 7 also corresponds to the very metaphysical principles that we work with when we say I am in the 7 directions. We're working with the light body chalice. We have the chalice on the image on the thumbnail today. This solar Venus prayer, as I am in the 7 directions, I want you to really understand this for those of you who have been working with it for a long time. This prayer invokes what we call faith and wisdom, or love and wisdom. This is in the lineage of Pistis, Sophia, and the Gnostic forms of Christianity, which we call, this stream is a direct descendant of the feminine Essenes, or the Christ Sophia Essenes. So when we say I am in the 7 directions, we're invoking the very energies of the solstice. This prayer is so powerful, and this ritual has been built up in the astral plane because it's been said hundreds of thousands of times, maybe millions. It was birthed, working in the 7 directions is a known way to work, but that was birthed in a training between 2010 and 2012. And so it's been said over and over in a prayerful state. And so when you say I am in the 7 directions, you're calling upon, there's this powerful egregore around it. And it's also the egregore of the pentagram, the risen pentagram, which is the pentagram is the archetype of light body woman. It's our it's our brand. So the pentagram is the risen Christos Sophia, is really what's being invoked in the white sun as the risen goddess on this planet. And in order for that goddess to rise, we have to have a chalice created, or even a chariot. And so we're going to be talking about some of the esoteric codes around the chariot that we work with in Art of the Feminine as well. But for right now, let's open with the solar Venus prayer for solstice. Whether you're in the southern hemisphere or the northern hemisphere, where I am, you're experiencing the Cancer solstice, which is the solstice of the moon and the Divine Mother. The Cancer solstice is in the archetype of Saturn, and the Capricorn is in the archetype of Saturn, as Capricorn is ruled by Saturn and Cancer is ruled by the moon. And so we're going to revisit some of the Mother Mary writings, because Mother Mary we also work with as the lunar principle, the lunar feminine principle. So I want you to just take a moment and really, this prayer takes about a minute. We work with the diamond mudra right in front of the heart. And this is significant because the diamond is also, you think of turning lead into gold in alchemy, or turning coal into the diamond. These are alchemical references. We turn lead into gold, hence the golden chalice on the thumbnail for the Venus mysteries. And we also turn our coal into diamond. And both of these things are buried in our own earth. They're buried in our own consciousness. They're buried in our own underworld. And it's through the solar feminine alchemy that we get worked on and pressurized and put in the heat and the furnace of this and arising from that is the etheric body of the Holy Mother Spirit emerging in the underworld as the risen etheric body, or what we call the body of light, which has its various stages. We also see this as the light body chalice, which is this. It's the triangle for the heavenly water principle, which is the chalice. It has the apex pointing down, whereas the male triangle has the apex pointing up. And so let me see if there's anything else I want to say. So that's the diamond mudra. And then we connect before we begin with the inner sun. We always start by connecting with the inner sun, or the solar feminine principle buried in the heart. So the heart and earth are the same frequency. They are an anagram for one another, heart and earth. And so when we say we're looking at the sun or the spark within our heart, where we're also referring to the earth. And in Light Body Woman, and through outside Light Body Yoga, because it's a stream of Magdalene, we call the Magdalene Magi, the body of divine feminine masters that rule and that have seeded Light Body Yoga. That Magdalene is a personification. Her archetype, which has been dismissed, is a living personification and embodiment of Gaia, of the planet. She walks as the planet. And so everything that she does, the earth is doing as well. And in this particular lifetime, I also got to be born as a Taurus and have a lot of energy in this sign, but it's the earth as well as the Empress and Venus, where the moon is exalted, the Mother Mary, or the white sun, the alchemized sun, has been regenerated and birthed. And so this is a long intro, but this is what we're calling upon every time you do I am in the 7 directions. And so just taking a moment, looking inward, connecting in your psyche, in your heart, and in your womb or your will with the holy light that dwells within you. This is an act of faith every time, and faith is the only power that is needed at this time. It's the only thing. There's one word for everything you need: faith. The Pistis, Sophia, is faith and wisdom, showing that before you've even asked, when you are in faith, the wisdom is flooding you. The wisdom you need to walk through this labyrinth of life in the underworld, to walk through this glorious planet, and for your heart to connect with nature. There's a part of this stream that talks about how it's our heart that's activating nature wherever we go. The goddess, we've said this, I think, in the last video, the earth knows who you are. Gaia, the planetary being, the earth goddess, knows every child that walks on her. How, you might say? Through your heart. The frequency of your heart, which we sometimes say the divine feminine frequency or goddess frequency, is how she reads you. You know, I know some of the Southern American and indigenous traditions talk about how, you know, when the white man walks into nature, how he's almost rejected. This is going back, and I use that language not to be divisive, but because of the separation between the human auric field and the aura of our planet, which is in turn the activation of the aura of the entire cosmos. It is through our heart that we communicate with everything that has been manifest and with the unseen world. It is by your heart that you are known. So all alchemy is really the alchemy of the heart. Venus, solar Venus. When your heart has been activated and initiated, we say, you are the living embodiment of the solar feminine principle. And this is the archetype of art of the feminine, the alchemy of the feminine. All you need to know in life is your own heart, and you will be in high standing with the universe. We're going to talk about what that means, and especially as we look deeper in this series into Lilith, because Lilith carries the burden of our sins. She carries the shadow body for all of us, and the duplicity and the duality that we all carry, where we present ourselves in one way, but within we carry a secret, our shadow. And oftentimes people are, in this world we can use magic to change our form and to look one way, but when the truth of who we are is always on the inside. When people say you're beautiful on the inside and out, that's what it means. And we all have moments and years and times and periods in our life when we truly are harmonizing our inner body and our outer body. We call that the body of Lilith on the inside. So when we say this solar Venusian prayer, you're instantly harmonizing the lower fire triangle with the upper water triangle. It's profound in its simplicity. In doing so, we activate what we call in light body yoga the light body chalice or the light body chariot. It is the vehicle of our consciousness. These are truly, truly profound mysteries. They're the Venus mysteries in this work. We work with the correspondences that have been received, so it has its signature. The work I share with you comes from the signature that and the correspondences that we've received by deep, deep, deep years-long work with Magdalene and this work. So let's activate your light body chalice with I am in the 7 directions. And if you can remember even a tiny bit of what was said every time you say this prayer, you'll be in a really good place. And if your heart remembers it beyond words, even better. And so after you connect with the sun in your heart, we're emitting the frequency of the solar feminine into our field. It's the command of the aura with the power of the word, or the throat chakra, which is also Venus. It's this harmony between throat and heart and the will, these 3 levels. And so now just repeating after me. I am before me. I am behind me. I am at my left. I am at my right. I am above me. I am below me. I am unto me. And now you take a deep breath in, inhale all the way in, suspend your breath. It also activates the will at your solar plexus. And just take a moment and feel it's the solar Christos or the solar force whirling within your temple, your inner temple. As you feel that, it's creating a vortex, especially in the heart chakra. Just take a moment to understand how divine you are, how the Holy Spirit, you are a temple of the Divine Mother and the Christ force in your being already. It's who you are. It's your identity, your I am. And now exhaling it all out. I am, I am, I know I am. I am, I am, I know I am. This is the truth about the self. I am the sun. I am the one. The I am, the light body sun. And so I bow to you all and wish you really happy solstice blessings. All right, where should we start from here? Use that prayer. This is a time of faith. I heard an interesting saying yesterday. By the time we pray and ask for something, it's already too late. This is so profound. It was a video that came into my stream yesterday. I clicked on it for a second. I just happened to open it. And right there, the man that was speaking, who's a spiritual teacher, nobody that I've followed, but he was being interviewed. And he said this to the man interviewing him. The man was saying, I want protection. I want protection. And he said, by the time you ask for protection, it's too late. You've already given permission for the shadow forces to enter your field. This shook my world. It was last night. I laid in bed awake all night because it takes the perspective of Pistis, Sophia, of faith wisdom into another octave to understand that. I'll look for the video and see if I can find it in my history, and if I find it, I'll link it. I don't know. I didn't watch the rest of the video. This was literally a 1-minute clip that caught my eye and I saw it. So, what does that mean? This is the true Gnostic Christianity of the early Christians. We've been talking about, for those of you who watch me know, I had to have a revisit of the faith that I was born into and deeply, deeply educated and raised in. And so I spent a year praying the rosary, and now I know why. It was commanded that I do this. And in doing so, I got to really, really return to some of the formal teachings, and I've very much enjoyed it. Very much enjoyed it. However, it got to validate this work in Art of the Feminine even more, because this work is Gnostic. The feminine Essenes are Gnostic Christians. In other words, they're esotericists, and they are truly in harmony with the nature. And in the case of this platform, 100% dedicated to healing the feminine and the Magdalene archetype in our world. So I'll just see if I can tell you a little bit of what I received in really contemplating this all night and what it means. All right. So the state of grace, the state of grace is the state of pure faith. Now, the reason you may have heard about faith before, and I have too. I teach faith and I live in faith, but something blasted open in me last night. And it was the renaming of the I am in the 7 directions when that happened as solar Venus. It's when initiations come, sometimes something changes really quickly. And it was all of a sudden, it was just, you have to call the prayer now solar Venus prayer. It's such a union of our earthly experience as we walk this divine planet as human. We are also connected to the higher aspect. It doesn't mean the lower aspect is bad or dirty or sinful or wrong. It only validates this. It only makes it even more beautiful, like your body and your neck. There's very special archetypes that live in your neck, in the back of your neck. It's so powerful, which we're going to talk about a little more with Lilith. So this validation is faith. So when I know, this is what I want to say, and this is it. This is so big. I first of all invite everybody to begin to have the mindset of working together. The world is breaking off, and those people who choose to live in war, even if it's a righteous war and in conspiracy and in constant state of fear and they're coming and they're going to get us and they're going to do that kind of mindset, which, and we've talked about it over, and we've all, in my work specifically, there's been times, it's been going back a few years, but where I really investigated the truth aspect of, even in the alternative media and all of it, to really understand it. There's truth in a lot of it. However, this is what is meant by faith. The second you've entered into a fear video, you've already given the astral entities permission to invade you. I have experienced this. I have experienced my dream time invaded if I let my eyes lay upon something that was shooting out fear. So this isn't to say that you have to be naive or ignorant to some of the things that might attract you. It's fine. It should be done with deep discernment, though. Whatever you, especially when you're an initiate, whatever you give your eyes to, you're giving the power of God to that thing. What does that mean? It means you're creating it. That is what solar Venus is. As I believe something is worthy of my heart and my energy, I'm actually helping to build that thing up. Now, there's a huge portion we'll be doing with Lilith in the next video. What happens is the feminine energy and the empathic energy is highly valuable to everybody because it creates reality. Those of us who are born really in touch, really sensitive. First of all, we have to learn power for our sensitivity, though, and we teach that a lot. We have heart energy, and that means we have a lot of feminine energy. And so if you can harness this, going back a couple of years now, maybe even a few years, we talked about how this was happening in the world with specifics, which I may return to in the next video. All of the sensitives with love. If you feed something that's wrong, you're giving it permission to grow in the world. Let me see if I should say anything else about that. Let prayer and the awakened word, which we'll talk about with Mother Mary in just a moment, be the awakened word is very different than the rebel word, or the warrior, even some of the lower forms of the warrior word. It's different. The awakened word is connected to solar Venus. Venus is the word. Venus rules Taurus, and Taurus is connected to the throat chakra. If you're born in Taurus, Taurus are often singers and performers because the throat chakra is ruled in Taurus. So Venus is the power. It's the fifth chakra in the fifth dimension. It's what you speak. The power of the pentagram, and that's why the pentagram is the archetype of the light body woman. We've been working with it for 20 years, profoundly. This is, and it's also, which is the risen host and the risen white sun of the etheric body. So what you give your attention to, we all have to go through stages where we learn. But I can tell you, if you wander into the wrong area, it's like wandering into a neighborhood where there's going to be a lot of attack. So you wander into, I've done that driving there's been a couple times at night where I wandered into a place and I just knew. And I got to experience that and being almost stranded there because you know what that also does though? It forces you to know your true power. You never pray harder than when you know you're out of your lane. You've wandered into a place where you have no physical power. So the only power you have is within you. And that could exist in I'm using that as an example, but it can even exist with people or with groups or even a bar. I've worked in a lot of bars over the years, many of them very nice, but some pubs as well in my early years in college. And, you can see that energy go dark too, where you need to evacuate and get out of it when people are under the influence of the spirits, under the influence of, why do we call hard liquor spirits? because the dark spirits move through it. And it's something to think about because it's being promoted everywhere. Okay. So just one moment, and we'll look at some of the writing. Just one moment. Faith. This state of faith, I can't put into words or articulate this shift I had. It was a deepening of my own work. It was an initiation, right? On the eve of the solstice is often considered a time of initiation where it's beyond words. Let me see if I can find the words. Well, it truly is the self or the I am. That host rising, that solar lunar principle is the rising self, which holds the presence, even all the masculine lineages, the yogic. I've had the book I Am That on my bedstand for 25 years. The Advaita Vedanta teachings um, of the Atman and Brahman. And these are all pointing to that state of presence in the moment. That state requires faith. What is faith? It's belief. So, how you believe about yourself, and this is deeply connected to the Capricorn full moon, which is perception. What you believe yourself to be will determine every single thing you do, every relationship, every how you use your time, what you believe, what fear you take on. When we know who we are, we become more wise. We're baptized in wisdom, and wisdom is the Holy Spirit or the Holy Sophia, the Virgin Sophia, and our whole auric field is united with the divine will. So this, let me just ask this prayer, the reason we're calling the prayer I am in the seven directions, it is truly this state of consciousness, which is the light body chalice or the light body chariot. It is, if you want to talk Merkabah, that's what this is. There's no mystery around it other than it's the state of the belief of who we are, pure faith. So you have to oftentimes meditate to get into that state or have a profound shift. I just want you to combine these archetypes of the chalice with the rising host as the symbol of pure faith. This is faith. It's a state. And the world has to respond to you when you're in that state. It does not mean that you won't have challenges in your life. In fact, the challenges that come are always strengthening you. Trust me, when you're walking the path of an initiate, it's nonstop. The pressure gets turned up, the dial gets turned up. It's like being in a torture chamber to the fact where you think you won't remain on this planet. I'm not promoting that. I'm not promoting that. But if you've lived through, you understand what that means. And even in our daily life, a breakup, a job loss, losing someone that we love, a relationship, in a child, a home, even losing an old belief system can rock us to our core. But these things are the tests and the trials that come. And when we start to live in the template of my life, which I'll share some of them, when you're bringing in a platform, these initiations align with certain cosmic initiations that activate the entire cosmos in your field. These are grand. These are grand. So, okay. Let me say, so the Cancer solstice is the solarized moon, the mother. Solar Venus is the risen mother, the Holy Spirit, the chalice of the solar ELOHIM. That white sun represents the white light of the ELOHIM that flow through it. And the chalice represents the prism. We call the light body prism, which breaks it into its worker bees, the bees that go out and do work for the heart. Okay, and so I just want to say the Cancer Capricorn axis, the Capricorn full moon that's happening tomorrow is is the dark radiant Venus light, whereas Cancer the Cancer solstice is the solar feminine birthing, giving birth, the fruition. Capricorn is the almost like the implanting. Um, my son is born in Capricorn. Capricorn is a really powerfully connected to the sun and also to the male gods that come in. The Christmas is in the sign of Capricorn, and there are many other gods that come through that portal in Capricorn because it represents the radiant Venus in the womb. I have more I could say about that. Okay. All right. So I'm going to just I'm going to go into some of this writing. So after we did the Mars and the Mother Mary mysteries, so we at Art of the Feminine have long worked with Mother Mary as Mars, as the regeneration of the Mars force. We also have several videos about the fallen, I'm getting all these notifications, sorry. Um, Sorry, just one sec. There it is. Okay. I swiped it off my screen. The fallen Mars force, it's Mother Mary that regenerates through. We have a very strong connection with the moon and Mars in this work, and both in service of the birth of Venus. So this writing we did, and that I sent out in my newsletter at the time of the Mars and the Mother Mary mysteries, was called The Return of Stella Marie. I am the woman clothed in the sun, with the moon beneath my feet and a crown of 12 stars on my head. This is from Revelation. Such a deep archetype. And so the moon at her feet is more the transmutation of the shadow body, and the alchemy of that lunar feminine principle that then rises to be clothed in the sun, like that white host on the thumbnail is circled in the sun, shining behind it. In the same way, the full moon of Capricorn tomorrow, the opposite axis of Cancer, will receive the full light of the sun and give it off as the full moon. Mars in the Mother Shakti, in the Mother Mary mysteries. We also call her Light Body Shakti. That's why I said Shakti. So Adi Shakti, the word of Stella Marie, star of the sea, the lady clothed in the sun. She says, I am the cosmic aether of the Divine Mother's holy substance, the Akash, that vital energy and the substance. I am the light body Shakti of Sophia's womb. That's where we get into, for those of you in winter solstice, the womb mysteries that we work with here. I am the purification and transformation of holy matter. I am the spiritual substance of regeneration. I am the rising of the solar feminine impulse in human consciousness. I am the purification of the astral body. And I put in divine womanhood because that's specific work we do here. I am mother of the word. So Mother Mary, as we know, her archetype gives birth to the sun, or to the solar Christic force. It's what we're all designed to do, and that's what the sun rising from the chalice is. This divine feminine consciousness is buried in you as the seeds of the endocrine system and the powers of the regenerative force. So in the Mother Mary mysteries, the last video we did, we talked about the specific correspondences that we work with in divine feminine astrology that have been given in this stream of the eighth house mysteries in terms of Magdalene. My North Node is in the eighth house, which is Scorpio, but in Pisces. But it falls in, my North Node falls in Pisces, the last degree, the end of the zodiac, with an eighth house emphasis. This is regeneration, and it's a deep healing of the heart. How do we heal the heart? We learn how to love. What is one of the main vehicles of love? Human love. What is the love that unites the dragon force, or the sexual force? I don't say that too often in the video so it doesn't get labeled in that way, but the dragon current, the regenerative force, or the generative force, when that is united with the heart, which only happens on one level in love relationships, it's meant to happen in love at this age of our evolution. The solar heart is activated now. The light body Shakti force of the mother for her child is also a unification of that womb energy with the heart. And so when you give birth to a child in a healthy, spiritual human, even normal woman that hasn't found any spiritual voice, there's the instinctual love of the child. And as you become more awake and more spiritual, but even on the human level, that love transcends everything. You would die for that. You can't explain it, but you automatically, there's something that happens in that, that migration of the soul through your body into the world, that you now have a very special link. And they say that link is karmic and it never goes away. So what we birth on every level becomes part of us, part of our aura. And also the seeds, because we're talking about the seeds of the endocrine system, which are the seeds of Nun, the Hebrew letter Nun, the light seeds that fall in Scorpio. Nun is also death. The archetype death corresponds to Saturn, corresponds to Uranus. There's all these different correspondences that we work with that you're solarizing the seed. We're bringing it into a higher potential. And that's what this work is about. Mary carries the resurrection of the fallen Mars force in her holy feminine Shakti body. When Mars fell through human consciousness, we often talk about Eros and war. And the regenerative force, the goddess became Eros in war. She became the distorted and deformed desire body of Lilith. So Lilith as the dark moon, there needed to be a container to carry it. That container we work with as Lilith. Lilith carries the forces. And so she plays a huge part in the regeneration of them. And we're talking about her today. And then there's I was just shown there's so much more with Lilith. And I'm going to share the way we work with her in Light Body Woman. And she became the holy sacrifice of the carnal wound of humanity. So let's just take a moment with that, because this is Magdalene and Venus. Magdalene, as we work with her, as the full personification of this planetary force in the Venusian Forces. And that's why this is the Venus Mysteries. She is also carrying Lilith, like every one of us are. And she's taken it on in a way that demands a holy sacrifice that is beyond words. And so that's what worked when I talk about turning up the dial. We're talking about that. Only certain situations lived through in the physical. They also come into the psyche and the heart center and the womb, but they have to reach us on those levels for the real alchemy to happen. And so that's why sometimes we talk about how this path of Light Body Woman is the divine feminine alchemy. It's in partner, it works together with some of the masculine streams that have a bit easier time getting to the eye. This requires the feminine sacrifice that we talk about here of the holy daughter. And so these aren't just words, these are built up containers to hold this wisdom that have been extracted, well, almost like dug up in order to give them, to turn it from a deformed form back to a brilliant, articulate form that shines beauty and harmony. And this is why this work is called Art of the Feminine, because there's a saying in alchemy. So in alchemy, and also in occultism, you have the right and left hand path. You have the mystic and the occultist. The occultist is more of a magician, and that's really kind of big on the planet right now, especially in some of the certain streams. The occultist is the male stream, and the occultist wants to use the mind. The mystic, but beyond that, the divine feminine mystic has to go the path of the heart. Now, there's higher things that can be said about that. Just one moment. Just one moment. Let me see where I was at in the writing to correspond it together. So this is required for that regeneration, and it requires emotion. It requires attachment. It requires that we don't just shut everything off. It requires that we live through certain things. Now, most people won't do every initiation in each lifetime because you wouldn't even be able to stay in a physical body. So there's things that have to be done. But in this world, understanding love is so important. You cannot fake that. Understanding the union of the masculine and feminine, which is the only way to heal the astral, and which brings the Gnostic wisdom of Magdalene into its true platform. I know what I'm going to jump to next, what was revealed. So just in just one moment, making a mental note of that. These initiations can't be faked because your inner form shows what you carry and what you have yet to face within your own being. And so not to get ahead of ourselves, but that risen host is the final altar of alchemy, the golden chalice with the white sun rising. That is a very real state, but that is, the archetype of Mary holds that. Both Marys work with this stream. And we're working with Venus as that chalice that's capable of carrying it. There are certain things that you have to go through. When you go through them, they change you forever. It may take years or lifetimes of struggling at one initiation, because especially the initiations with love, which are part of what I got to, not part of, but all of what I got to live through, require a sacrifice of the feminine so that the eyes are fully open and the word can fully speak the truth. There is only one way in the feminine mysteries to access that, and that's by the purification. This purification is the wisdom, the divine feminine wisdom. It is in its early stages on this planet. There have been, I'm going to be talking more and more about my personal connection with some of the other streams of esotericism, perhaps theosophy, and there's a few others. And at a certain time, I'm going to give my specific, because Art of the Feminine is a cosmic feminine stream. The work that we hold here has been on the table front and center from the time I left my own mother's womb, which I have something so beautiful. It's so amazing. This is a personal story, but my mom just gave me the bracelet that was put on me when I was born, and I had never seen it. And it's like little pale pink beads, and then it says Shannon. And I can't even, something also busted open in me when I held this, because this is going back a long time. There was no Taylor Swift at that time. Like, these are friendship bracelets, but I was wearing one. It had those beaded bracelets, and it said my name, and it was pink and white. And That's just, I'm sorry, I'm just reflecting on from the time, because when you leave the womb, your birth chart becomes operative. You come in with a natal chart, and so your natal chart holds your blueprint. We work with divine feminine astrology. We work with all the different octaves of astrology, not just the exoteric astrology. We work very Kabbalistic. My work is Kabbalah. We work Kabbalistically with the planetary bodies. And so you're already coded for what you're coming in for in this lifetime. And so you also have to trust and have faith in the process. Back to the faith principle, whatever we do have we have free will. And so sometimes we're mirroring something that it doesn't mean that we are that thing. You have to step beyond that paradigm and understand. However, if you come within the orbit or the field of that, there is a coordinate within you that will recognize it. It's only the awakened part of your soul that knows which choice to make. That choice becomes automatic when you're in faith. At that point, you no longer have to pray for help, like this gentleman said. By the time you pray, you've already betrayed your own inner being. You've already believed that that being isn't working for you. Now, where it gets tricky is that prayer is also very, very potent and powerful, and praying for divine help and divine mercy. I mean, all the religion has its place. It absolutely has its place. I just prayed the rosary for a year and saw the profundity of picking it up. And that's a prayer, by the way, to this energy. The rosary is a prayer to that chalice with the white sun rising. That is what the rosary is. It's a Venusian current that happened to come through a patriarchal lineage. As always, the goddess does not abandon the ship when things go wobbly or when there's a glitch. She's always there, even for all people practicing, even if it's a very simplistic form of any religion. If your heart is in it, you're being guided. So that archetype, just one moment. Okay, so I'm being shown it's time to shift a little bit, but just one moment. These are the trials that we are facing in our world at this time, and there's a lot of forces trying to pull us away from that. Technology, this was coming in so strong last night, is atrophying our power to alchemize. When you think about, now I'm not trying to demonize technology, but there's something we must know as spiritual beings. If technology does everything for us, now there's some people who believe it's meant to free us up. There's some truth in that. There's a creative aspect to it. I use it every day. But when we're all chipped and we're no longer running our own mind, that we've just stepped out of that lane of alchemy and into another one. Now, if it's some kind of super highway to a consciousness that's connected to, some technological God, that's a different thing. It doesn't mean our experience might not look beautiful on the outside. People are going to get more beautiful, better genes, better gene editing, better physical appearance, more luxury, more all of that. But the fall, in the fall of the angels, there are certain Atlantean tales that talk about how the fallen angels merged with the animal nature, the Lilith nature. They mated with the underworld. We see those archetypes with Adam and Eve, representing the masculine and feminine principle. They mated in a way where the desire body was usurped and became the generator from this world. And so that world constantly wants more tech, more, make things easier, make things more lusty, make it so easy. You think about online dating, how much easier it got to where people no longer have to dig within to think about. Now, it doesn't mean it can't be used properly. A lot of people I know have gotten married, so it's not to totally put it down, but the mass crisis we see with dating, with people aren't even getting married anymore. Like this is very real. And there's esoteric reasons for that. And again, I don't want to say this all the time, but that's no judgment, because your path is your path. The path you are on is perfect. But in order for this alchemy of the age of Venus to happen, the goddess Epoch, these are the archetypes we've been given at Light Body Woman. This is the age of Venus because it's the age of the heart. It's the age of the planetary body as the goddess. It's the age of Aquarius, which holds the inner mysteries of Venus. So we can't abandon human love. And part of what I got to live through is understanding why, and understanding what has happened with human love, and what happens in how love relationships have been attacked, deeply attacked. We have a whole, many podcasts called The New Human Sexual Paradigm. And there's so many where we talked about this. The attack on love is very real. It's archontic. And so what happens is the entities of the consciousness that are swarming this world, because we've abandoned ship, are really active and out and about right now. But so is the light. Both are happening. That's taking me more into 3D, so we'll return to that in just a moment. So the Magdalene, as the personification of our glorious and beautiful planet, is very real. We can't only look at the high and lofty, highbrow version of the feminine. We have to embrace the mysteries of Magdalene and Yeshua. And this is truly Gnosticism. Oh, I know, I'm going to jump to that. Let me just see if I want to read anything else, and that's where we're going. Just one moment. Mary regenerates this force in her aura and in her womb through the process of purification and transmutation, giving birth to her golden son, the Son of Man and body of resurrection. I will post this. This was sent out to everyone a couple months ago, but it's a really beautiful, I haven't posted it on my social media yet. She is the holy feminine mother of the human race. She's an aspect of Magdalene, and her immaculate heart will triumph in this age as the return of the goddess anchors in our hearts and auras as the new goddess Epoch emerges. Venus rules the coming age as the heart, the Christed heart, or the solar Venusian principle. I can say with my entire being that the reason for my incarnation in this lifetime is 100% in service of this, both through lived ritual in my own life, but with every fiber of my being in every lifetime I've ever had is here for Venus in this lifetime. And she's behind us. She's everywhere. Okay. So Mary is the privileged female channel through which the grace of solar Christ Sophia, or cosmic Christ Sophia, flows and flowers into the mystical body of humanity to resurrect the feminine temple of soul and spirit. And so on Lionsgate this year, we're doing the restoration or the resurrection of the feminine temple. That's what this is about. That's what all of Light Body Woman is about. She is the resurrection of Mars, Marie. Those are correspondences that were given within the teachings. The Ma-Ra as moon sun instead of Ra-Ma, sun moon. That was something received in Light Body Woman, and also Mars as Mar-Ri. And in fact, putting the E sound, I want to say something. This is really powerful. So as you know, sound current activates things. When you take Mar and you put E on the end of it, E is Venus. The sound E represents Venus. So you've just solarized the Mars force by putting Marie. And I've not come into this any other place than just by working. This is what working with the holy wisdom bestows. And it's not lightly. I don't even say those words lightly, but it's a time to share these things and to share. Mari is the solarized and regenerated force of Mars as the light body Shakti. We cannot, the one thing I want to say is we can't have that energy until we straighten some things out on Earth collectively. But this, the collective soul group, I know the group that I'm part of is holding it already. And so there's different connections being made around the world. And there's certain human vehicles that might not appear spiritual, but that have this buried within their soul. I'll give you a hint. You have to understand love to carry this. You have to understand divine love and love relationships to carry it. That cup has to be drank. We have to drink of that stream of love. And whether it's now or in the future or in the past, we have to understand the value of love. And that's why healing love relationships is so important, because on the archetypal level, we're healing Cancer and Capricorn. We're healing the archetypal mother and father. Okay, so now there was only one line left. Then I'm going to tell you something. Okay, she is the resurrection of Mars, Mahra, and heavenly matter, mater. To just understand, there were certain Gnostic sects that condemned matter. We're not of that stream. This is a very precise stream. Although they're also understood, they're also recognizing that it's a denser matter that's not vibrating with the Venus force. We always say Venus and Taurus is light in matter. It's the union of spirit and matter, holy union. Certain things are required before that work is done, especially in the feminine. Her power to resurrect Mars is her great power. Oh, wait, she is the solar feminine impulse, the new Venusian impulse within her heart and womb and within the consciousness of the human race. She has revealed herself as the mother of the world. This is the sign of Cancer, and this is the solstice. These are the divine energies of today. And by the way, when you make just going to do this, the chalice at 60 degrees is the chalice of Venus. So the 60 degrees in mysticism corresponds to Venus. And so when you literally make the chalice, we're reaching up, we become Venus in that statement. In the light body sun ritual, we're going to do that. This ritual that I'm telling you is so powerful, and it goes along with faith. We'll do it in just a few. I used it every time I ever walked on stage. And I had total faith. Like I was the type of actor that would be so nervous. Even in my early days training, I was never a natural. Like I never could just walk out. I'd be like totally, it got better, but I was definitely someone who had to do a ritual before I went on. And this is the ritual I did. And I will tell you, like, some of the feedback I used to get, even from directors, that when you embody this energy, people almost don't even hear what you're saying or doing. They just see this light, because it's a true activation of what you are. It's your I am. And so we're going to do that today. So this is what I want to talk about. All right. I think I wrote it down. Yes, I did. Okay. I'm going to have one sip here. All right. All right, excuse me. I require so much fluid when I teach. Okay. I want to talk about something that I saw this past week. So because I've been speaking to religion, and in fact, I had someone left a really funny comment on my last video. I didn't respond to it because I thought I would respond to it here, but she put, there is no Santa Claus, there is no Jesus. That's what this comment went on to say. This is what happened. This is what happened in the church. So we talked about that in the last video quite a bit. We talked about how I had been going through the catechism and I've studied this before. Actually, my work is a Gnostic lineage, so I understand it. But this is what I want to say about what's happening in the world right now, because it's very important for what's happening with religion. So all over, there are there's all these conversions happening to religion. And really, is a lot of Christian, evangelical, a lot of Catholic people converting to Catholicism. It's everywhere. I can honestly say that when I started this whole past year journey to do it, I didn't realize that. Now I'm seeing it. And I'm like, oh, wow, now I understand why. So I recently saw a lecture. This just came upon, I usually let things come to me, but it was about the heresy of the Gnostics. Oh my God. As I was watching it, I couldn't watch it without writing the whole time, because for every statement made, it was the solar Venus. There was just the answer to it, the answer to it. And I thought, that's too bad. Literally, I thought that's really too bad that the church is still speaking this way. It's one thing to say we don't agree, and it's one thing to say that we define our boundaries. That's allowed. Meaning, if you have a belief system, a doctrine, a dogma, a magisterium, a catechism, you're allowed to define it. That's perfectly par for that's allowed in this game of alchemy in the underworld. But when you're directing over a billion people, it's not a good idea to condemn things. This is what happened with Magdalene, and this is what happens. This is what happened in a certain periods of the Inquisition and the Crusades. It wasn't all about that. There was other things happening too. This was not just about burning the witches and drowning the women. There were and the herbalists, the women who worked with the being condemned as being carrying evil entities. There were other things going on. However, the slaughter of the Gnostics is absolute history, meaning the church spent at one point 30 years trying to wipe out every last one. And again, I'll just take a moment to call in the high energies of love. This isn't a calling out. This is just a speaking through this current. And it's also the reckoning of I have different streams of training. And so I had this training, and so I have to address it. I said it's a karmic contract, and there's a lot more. So so this lecture was saying this is the longest running form of heresy ever, and it's more alive than ever in the world. The Gnostics, the evil Gnostics. And I will tell you that if you study, I had a friend who did her master's in divinity school or in theology at Princeton. And she talked about when she was studying the Gnostics, she's like, oh my God, they're just crazy. So this was way a long time ago when she was in grad school there and was talking about it. And if you look at certain teachings in Gnosticism, and especially without the proper lens of understanding, they seem crazy. And in fact, there's certain archetypes in Gnosticism, I don't use them because this is a stream. This goes deeper into the stream, and it's also it's very specific. We call it the Christ Sophia Essenes, which came out of Alexandria and ancient Egypt, where some of the wisdom was first received on the planet. I won't make that claim, but where some of this wisdom was living and preparing for this cycle. I mentioned the male streams and how most of them are not carrying the full body of wisdom. Many of them prophesize the Venus mysteries are coming in the future. And this work for the past 20 or 30 years, this is it. This is a cosmic feminine stream with such a massive archetypal library that it's been being worked out. I've committed my entire life, day and night, all day, every day, and all night, every night. And I'll be saying a little bit more about that. But this is one center or one nucleus of this wisdom. So to condemn that and to say that it's heresy and to still be using the word heretics, that shows an insecurity. It shows an insecurity. Now, again, you can criticize them. There's nothing wrong with criticizing. There's nothing saying, look, people, these are our beliefs. These people are blaspheming what we believe in. But it's not quite like that because it's ignoring the true history of the church, where for the first 300 years, and we talked about this in the Magdalene video a lot, that in what I really especially got to relive in listening to the catechism, very specifically, each detail of how it was created. The first 300 years were Gnostic Christians, and there was many, many sects. They were scattered all around. There wasn't a unified church. There was no Roman church at that time. There were the Gnostics. And so that's why all the legends and the lore about all of this. And some were more blended with other traditions, and there's all different kinds, which is how religion always works. However, the understanding that the Gnostics held also traced to other traditions, and the church fathers could not take that wisdom, and therefore it was competition or threat. Because if somebody has something that's of value, I mean, think about competition. We only fear people that we know have something. Otherwise, you don't fear people, meaning you only try to stomp out something that you know they're holding something of value or that's real or that could be a threat. So again, this is not to get into the conspiracies, but when I saw this, I was so shocked to see this video this week. And I was like, wow, that, because I talked about it last time, that's still alive and well. I didn't realize it was still. Wait, I will say one thing, that so I at some point I'm going to talk about the lineages that I connect to personally and that have influenced Art of the Feminine. Um, and there's been times when I've seen pictures of people who with the word heretic written across them on religious websites recently, where I was like, this is all you need to know. Again, we're moving into a time on this planet where we're synthesizing and rising. So there's no more takedowns or wars. The energy of my work can't go into that realm. Even in the past many years, when there were a lot of conspiracies, when you could go out with a certain message and just blow up, this work here, when you're carrying a stream, you're not allowed. The reason being because it's pristine. When you build, meaning what I mean by that is it's not to make a big claim, but it's an energetic. You have to take baby steps until the bigger ones come. And you have to walk very carefully. We say the higher you go, the harder you fall. You have to make sure your word is only attached to what you know and to what is not harmful and to what is not absorbing the lower energies, because we can fool ourselves into thinking sometimes that we're fighting the good fight. And that's what happens in all the various times in the planet when this bloodshed breaks out, because that is Eros and war. That is the fallen Mars or patriarchal force that cannot see the truth. And so let me see if there's anything else I want to say. The gnosis of the early Gnostics, the divine feminine gnosis, is understanding the Grail of Venus or the Grail of Mary Magdalene and the understanding of where it all starts. And if you do not understand that relationship between Christ and Magdalene, between Yeshua and Magdalene, then you don't understand how the mysteries worked. Because there is no completing the body immortal or the body of resurrection without deep purification of the heart. And the heart is Venus. And the heart is healed on the astral level, where we balance the masculine and the feminine to give birth to the body of light, the body immortal. Sounds so simple, and it's even taught. I grew up with these teachings of the immortal body and the body of resurrection, even in religion, which holds the codes. I have to be really honest. The goddess mysteries are all there. And I want to say, I need to say this. First of all, if you're practicing a religion, but you have love in your heart, you are contributing to the awakening and the esoteric flowering of that religion, because these things are being raised up, and there are truly forces that are trying to take them down, fighting on the 3D level and the 4D level, meaning there's this battle happening between the archetypes. between different ancient archetypes. That's really happening. So sometimes when people are defensive, like, oh, they're after us, and this on 3D, that is true. Meaning there are plans and conspiracies to take this down or change that or beat that out. This is what we have. This is what we're saying today, and the summer solstice or the Cancer solstice video with the Venus mysteries. Your inner temple is in your heart. And if you're true, you don't have to be perfect, but if you know what love tastes like, if you've tasted love, if you've tasted suffering, if you've loved and lost, if you've been betrayed or abandoned or left for dead, and if out of that experience grew the flower of life, you're on the path of knowing what real love is. Divine love. Divine love is the child of the harmony of the masculine and the feminine, the moon and the sun. And divine love is that white sun rising from the golden chalice. We can speak these things over and over, but until we drink from that cup, they're only words. And even, in my work, in these lectures, I'm being allowed to speak freely, even with correspondences we work with, which has always been much more guarded, but it's for a reason. That, first of all, is very protected by faith. Faith, the vow to only walk forward with faith, unshakable faith. And if any shadow needs to be revealed, it is revealed immediately. It must be in that state. And there's a sense of the divine will channeling through. That is the lost word of Mother Mary, the lost word, the true word that can only speak for love. There's a time, for overturning the tables in the temple, but our true path is service and bringing love wherever we go. Wherever we go, we are the soul standing in that place. That is the true initiate. Be the soul of wisdom wherever you are. Now, this could be seen as denying the human self. I'm speaking up right now, speaking to the elevated consciousness in all of us. I'm meant to speak to what is in you that holds that gold or that diamond, to call it forth from afar, to call to you that this is who you are. It starts by just simply serving. How is that different from being a doormat or from overgiving, which is has been the big talk for a long time now, especially since a lot of women got on social media. With social media came the voice of the wounded feminine in all men and women. We got to really rant, and we got to really that's why we got to let the wound out and speak about it. Everybody got a platform. So there is a wound. And that wound tends to overgive or want validation, all those things. However, we have to get ourselves to the state where we can hold enough wisdom to still walk with the wound, but to move past the stage of constant breakdown. That is a very valid stage, but we're evolving as human beings. So I'm calling out to all those who are ready to make that first step on the temple stair. It's time. It's time for us to see love and to be the truth of the light body human, to really embody it. Okay, so what can I say to finish? So looking back to the times of early Christianity, there were the mysteries being taught in Egypt at Alexandria, and there were the Essenes and the Therapeutae, and these are lineages that the inner disciples and initiates of it would have been the ethnic Jewish lineage, but they came from around the world in Egypt. There was also, the Sufi and in the East, those from the East, and The mystical. The mystical is always the feminine tradition of wisdom, where we study Sophia's wisdom, the wisdom of the cosmos, the wisdom of the planetary forces, the wisdom of the earth, the wisdom of human love and motherhood. These are profound things, and the wisdom can't be given until we drink of the cup. I think there's a statement, I think there's this passage in scripture that says it's Christ in the garden, the heart. Everything is archetypally and allegorically coded. Christ is in the garden waiting to be crucified, waiting on Pontius Pilate, and I think it was the Pharisees, it was the Romans. All of the whole archetypal gang that's coming. So, and says, if Father, if I might not have to drink of this cup, may it be so. I think that I'm remembering that correctly. But to drink of the cup is different than speaking of it. Initiation is drinking of the cup and then verifying that you're capable of not only transmuting, but of holding stable that substance that's been transmuted. Because sometimes we transmute and then the fabric, the substance falls right back down. So in this is as much as I'll say about this, but in initiation is about verification. It's not words spoken. Words spoken mean little in the mysteries. Only verification, through the Arafan, who it's like being knighted, who says yes, you pass, you're knighted. And you think of that. I'm thinking of this art that I have where the goddess has her sword on the knight, and she's bestowing him. That is the divine mother bestowing her child, both male and female. She's saying, I bequeath you. You showed up. You suffered the night you fought in your armor, but underneath is your immortal body ready to blossom and bloom. Verification. Words mean little. There's that saying, words are cheap. But they're not, because in a risen form, words are everything. The word with a capital W is the risen word. It's the lost word, reclaimed. All right, let me see if there's anything else here, and then I will peek down. Oh, okay. So yeah. Oh, so I wrote the church versus the artist. So what we're seeing in the world right now, if you look at the polarity, so I want to talk a little bit about I want to talk a little bit about the artists. I'm going to talk about the left and right in politics, but also the holier than thou and the artists, and that, because both have gone off the rails. We all know the archetypes, the masculine archetypes and the female archetypes are both embodying the shadow. It's meant to be. The shadow has to show itself. So it's showing itself right now. Just one moment, and I'll finish on this. I'll finish talking about the church versus the artist, or the church versus Venus, in just one moment. Okay. So hello, it's so good to see you. I know these are long, so that's why that's why I'm time stamping them, so that you can come back and see what we talked about when. Okay, so the artists are Venus. Venus is art with a capital A. But she is what we call in our work the great art. In mysticism, you hear the word with the occultists, the great work. We call it, the words that were given to me for Light Body Woman are the great art, because it's the great art of the feminine. And that's why Art of the Feminine is named Art of the Feminine. In Art of the Feminine also, the gematria of it and the numerology of it holds Venus 100%. It is Venus, and the word art holds Venus as well. So it means, and Venus is really the Magdalene. So it's almost was like the church still versus Venus, or versus Magdalene, by condemning all forms of Gnosticism. it's so deep seated and so ancient that many of the people speaking out about it don't even realize what they're doing. That's how lost the memory of the truth is. So you might get a priest or a bishop or someone speaking about the heresy of Gnosticism, and they're so far removed from understanding that they may really be thinking they're speaking the right thing because they feel the church feels threatened right now because there are forces. So this is not the Gnostic Illuminati. There are these old forces that are going at it right now. However, when you hear the conspiracies, the true wisdom is not part of that. It's not part of it. So the lower materialization or expression of some of this ancient wisdom has actually also seized even platforms in the world. There's a lot of masculine energy really embracing things like this right now, but you have to have the key to unlock it. There's no drinking the wisdom, the higher wisdom, without having the key. We cannot have the key until we have lived it and can verify in the presence of the darkest dark. So that's why when we hear, horror stories of initiation, they're like, they sound so awful, but they're archetypes for what we face on the etheric level within our own being. We have to we have to be careful what we're dabbling in or what we're claiming until until the word is attached to the true feminine principle. All right, I'm going to take a quick peek at this. I put the church internalized the fallen Mars. Now, also, again, I'm not speaking out against it, and I just say that because it's really important not to. There is no version of, there is no version of holy alchemy without the holy bride. Sorry. This is not a solo act. The holy bride is really important, and her archetype. I wrote down the Sibyls, the rabbis. Oh, the Sibyls, the ancient Sibyls, and the rabbis, even some of the genuinely connected. This is actually going into it's going into history. Held some of the wisdom that was a threat, and so that's why they had to be demonized or done away with. Okay. I might start to talk about, I'm just going to see what I wrote because I have a lot of writing, but I'm going to, and there's also the outer mysteries and the inner mysteries. And so the inner mystery school of divine love. So, and make sure to go to Art of the Feminine is the website because it's up now, and I'm posting, the feminine mystery section holds the work here. So the inner mystery school of divine love that I talked about in the last video, that's birthed on Art of the Feminine, that was birthed on May 1st, 2015, is a mystery school of the inner mysteries, truly. And when I go back and listen to some of those older recordings, it always blows me away because it was a specific channel happening at that time that was meant for that time in space. And it's preserved, and it's in fact, I have people send me things from that work often. Well, they'll say, do you remember this from this? And they'll send it to me, and it's almost like I'm seeing it new again because the work was so profound and so archetypally pristine. It's amazing. Okay. All right. Solar Venus is the awakened heart center. The Venus mysteries are the mysteries of the heart. And I am the creative word made flesh. This inner sun projects the kingdom of heaven on earth. We work with that when we work with Lionsgate. It is the transforming power of God to work through the human being. The heart is the woman. Magdalene is this inner temple of light. The New Jerusalem, she has been joined to Christos. The New Jerusalem is also something you find in the writings of William Blake. Really powerful. The bridal chamber of Shekinah releases the Holy Spirit, the solar Elohim, as the divine feminine essence of the angels. Last time we talked about Eve, angel eyes. Now, I also is the Hebrew letter ayin, which is the archetype of Capricorn, the birther, and it's also like the cervix. In the female anatomy, it's the eye that gives birth. So evangelize. I told the story about my son as a little boy talking to me about how the the activities of angels leaving his heart when he would focus on someone that needed help were, he said, it's too much. Then he told me, I talked about this maybe a couple videos ago. He said, Mommy, the angels are flying out of my heart. That's what we do. That is what we do. That is when our heart is this holy prism, the risen host of the lunar feminine that the divine light pours through and breaks up into the Elohim angels. We become healers when we embody this wisdom. Wherever we go, we are the soul and spirit standing in a human body when we embody it. Okay. Let me see what I wrote here, and then I might shift into my own life. Let's see if I should read this. Okay. Art of the Feminine is a cosmic feminine stream of divine feminine wisdom for the coming age of divine love. This is the whole mission and intention of this work here, in case you're wondering. The age of Venus is the goddess Epoch. There is no wisdom in the cosmos that is new. What is new are the initiatic vehicles that are verified, that have gone through stages of verification. And so that's what we all are doing on this path. We're verifying, meaning we're holding in the face of darkness the light until it's transmuted. It doesn't mean you can't be perfect right now and affect this planet in major ways, but this is the inner mysteries, meaning they get deeper and deeper and they're real. So it is the initiatic vehicle that links this cosmic feminine current through the process of genuine alchemy. At Art of the Feminine, we call this stream the Great Art, and the focus of this work for the past 2 decades, it looks like I've said all this, has been the regeneration of the Mars force, the fallen masculine, as the Mother Mary force, or the Mary mysteries of holy feminine sound current. Oh boy, this just opened that up. Lust frequency is a discordant sound. So I told you how I was initiated into, and people who work with me know, working with the power of the word through mantra, in not just casual little breaking out here and there doing a chant, but in a genuine, kind of like a scientifically coded way that corresponds. That is the holy sound current, and it has to merge into the heart before it can really, really, the name of God. Recently, I just actually opened a book by, I forget which Swami it was, Ramana Maharshi. Every now and then, because I have deep, many years of study in like these traditions from the sages in India, I got Ramana Maharshi and I just opened the book to see what it said immediately. And it's only a small portion of the book that talks about it. It was the holy name with a capital N, and talked about the holy name is all that exists. The holy name, the Adam is the namer. The namer. When Adam and Eve, Adam is the namer. It brings the name. The name is the very substance of reality. I've shared this before, but one of the great initiations or activations I had on Lionsgate was in 2008. And I was earlier on in my practice of working with the word. And when I walked out at a specific time onto my deck, I got to see the truth of that living current, the word. That really we just live in the ocean of light, and it's alive. The ocean we live in is a live force. It's the Christ force, the solar force. And when our heart, we can't see it because we're not aligned with it. But when we come into resonance with it, that is perfect faith. That's what faith is. When I had that experience, it's a much longer story, but I will only just say a couple things. My first gasp was, oh my God. The first words I said were, we do not know. Because my heart got taken up and I got to be in the field. And my first words were, it was like the sorrow for mother. We don't know what we are. We really don't know what we are because we live in this field and it is as real as you and me right here, but it's just on a different density or frequency. And so that very beautiful Lionsgate week, I had spent a week in one room and it was a yellow room. This was an old house. It was a bright yellow room and I chanted for a week straight. I was going through a very, very, very hard time and I was abandoned. And I was deep in this practice. I just said, I'm going to sit on this bed with a yellow comforter, a yellow duvet, a really pretty one. And I'm going to chant. It was the color of the sun. And I'm going to chant for a week. And I would only get up to get, this is solar Venus. I would only get up to get something to drink, get some food, and to, run out very quickly and come back. And after a week is when I had this experience. It was on Lionsgate, and I didn't even know it back then. I have it written in my journal. When I went and looked years later, I couldn't believe it. It was on 8/8. It was 8/8/8. It was 8/8/8. And my first words were, we don't know who we are. I was so like, I wanted to shout to the entire world, we don't know, because I realized that we don't know and that the whole field is love. There's nothing else but love. This is solar Venus and this is the Venus mysteries. We are literally living in the kingdom of light. And that light is coded and it's intelligent and it's in Gaia, the earth, even the lower elemental streams, and it's in our heart. And so our heart is the key that connects us to it. And so we have to purify our heart. This is where it gets hard. And this is where we're good. The whole next chapter, the whole next lecture is on the depth of Lilith. If we don't purify our heart, we're locked out of our own kingdom, our own Garden of Eden. The purity of the heart, it sounds like words, but it's not just words. In the particular state I was in, I was so humbled because I was in so much pain as a woman. I was carrying the divine feminine wisdom and had felt that at a level 10 on a 1 to 10 of pain. And I was a mother. I'm a mother too. So my son was very young, and it was so heightened. I think I started to talk about some of that stage of my life in the last video unexpectedly, and it made me very emotional because it was very real. And that's what brought me to the state where I was even capable of holding that energy for a week. And then it showed itself prolonged for longer than a minute. And it is sound. It is music. It's actually music. And so our heart is music as well. Our heart is meant to be a tuning fork. It's meant to tune. I'm thinking even just of a tuning fork. I'm thinking of the Hebrew letter Shin with the 3 prongs, the triple goddess. The triple goddess in Celtic is Maiden Mother Crone, or in the goddess traditions, but it's also Aleph, Mem, and Shin. It's water, fire, and air. This is real work. It has to be harmonized. It has to. And it's so the heart is the astral. The astral is the invisible world. It's the world of emotion and desire. And so Venus is desire in mysticism. And so you think of the fallen Venus as the fallen desire force, which we did so many podcasts about. They're so good. The fallen desire force is how we use our carnal force, how we use our God power, actually, and it's Magdalene. So how we use our force in the unseen world will determine the shape of our astral body. until it's purified, it's coal or it's lead. The diamond and the gold is the substance it becomes. It becomes the sun. Gold is the sun in the elements. It's the metal of the sun, the element of the sun. And then we hear the music. I'm thinking of this, oh my gosh, I'm thinking of this video my son used to watch a lot when he was a kid. It was a movie called August Rush. This is so crazy. This is how the universe works, by the way. August, the sign of Lionsgate, Rush, the gold rush. August Rush. Was it called August Rush? Now I'm thinking, I don't know if I have the name right, but it was August something. And it is about a little boy who's separated from his parents. This is so crazy. I didn't plan this. This is the pure archetype of alchemy. It's in everything. It's in art. Literally, I'm just understanding right now. This little boy is an orphan and he's wandering the streets, the labyrinth, looking for his music. I literally have goosebumps all over my whole body right now. His name is August. That's the sign of Leo and the sign of Lionsgate. It's the sign of the Christ. He's a Christ as a little boy. My son is also a musician. We watched this film and it's a good soundtrack too. It's August Rush. Yeah, we watched this so much. It was so profound. My son comes from this lineage as well. He was born through the sun. So he meets people through his music. He's a street guitarist and the guitaring is insane. It's so amazing. And he's with all these other misfits and they go through this process until he ends up, I can't even believe this. I've never spoken about this movie like this before. Until he ends up at the end of the movie. He studies at one of the Ivy Leagues in the music department. He becomes a conductor. I mean, this little kid is actually a genius. He's a virtuoso, which is what we are. More goosebumps. But he doesn't find it and know it until his parents find him and he finds his parents. And the long story short, he goes through all these things and there's the jester and there's the fool and all these archetypes show up in his life. But he's like, I can hear the music. I hear it. Everything to him was music. And sometimes it goes into his mind and he hears like pins dropping, the wind blowing, people talking, doors slamming. And he's so heightened in his ability to hear the logos that everything is music. Then he just composes. And at the end, he's the composer of, I forget which symphony it is. I think it's out of New York. It might be the Philharmonic, but he is conducting in Central Park. And his mother had been I think a cellist, and his father was a rock and roller. It's a really good movie, by the way. If you want, I still like it for the music and just for the actors. It was Kerry Russell and the British guy. I forget. He's very cute and charming, and he went through his own fall as well. He's very handsome, and the kid is amazing. But what happens is he's conducting on a summer night, a solstice night in Central Park, and his mother and father, who separate right after they slept together and conceived him, they never knew each other. The father tried to find the mother always dreamed about the father, but they too had been separate. It's the story of the divine mother separated from the divine father, the Christ from the Magdalene on the planet. And he's conducting in Central Park, and they both, through a series of circumstances, find their way to him during this concert and then end up, I'm sorry if I ruined it, but it's still worth it. They end up together and he is playing the music and he feels them. He's conducting, he stops, and it's so well done. He feels that his parents are there. This is the whole journey of the soul in matter. And it's all about music. It's all about sound. And I feel fortunate because I had so much Venus. I got to train with sound on the stage as an actor, through dance, and so I work with a lot of artists. A lot of artists are drawn to this work. A lot of artists and a lot of therapists. Most of the people who come in. The biggest populations are artists and therapists. So because of the archetypal wisdom, so that is this, the world we live in is music. He could hear it, most people cannot, but it's always happening. The sound of my voice is music. And every day my sound current corresponds to something happening within me. Whether we're tired or angry or mad, you lose your voice and you go through a period of adjustment. This is the truth about Venus. This is the truth about Gaia. This is the truth of our reality. So just taking it to this, imagine the discordant energy that comes out of all the fear, all the conspiracy, all of it. Now we can talk about how to get at the truth without having to go that path. It's generating more and more fear, even though it's dazzled in false light, like, ooh, look what we know, or look what we know. It's still, if it's invoking, if it's not empowering, it's calling upon that. What's happened on social media right now is that the fear algorithm, which is very real, rewards people with money. If you're on any of the platforms, think about it, you're on Twitter. When I see it, people post shock things now, posting something that shocks you because they're making thousands of dollars a post, even more. Because the more people that engage with it, interact with it, the more viewers get, the more advertising, and you're rewarded for it. That's what social media has become. We will not resurrect until we reclaim social media. They say love doesn't sell, but it's meant to. It's meant to. And even in our politics, it's trying to come through. Politics is a hard battle. There's very real human folly on both sides. Both sides fight viciously with each other and undermine the other and don't fight fairly. That's the game. That's how it works. So it's just gotten more and more and more visible because now everything's more in the open with social media, whereas we used to not know what was going on behind the scenes, but it's always been. There's still good people that enter the stream. But right now, let me just see if there's anything to know about this year in the US. It's a big year. Whatever you support, whoever you support, do it with love. And don't be so concerned with trying to hurt or injure or defame or the other. There's bits and pieces of truth that come through, even in like alternative media and stuff like that. A lot of truth comes through, but it's not verified. It has not been alchemized until it stands the test of the Divine Mother Initiator. And so when we abuse the word, we're bringing upon ourselves our own fall every time. And service is really using the word in honor of love and the heart, our actions, our relationships. Okay. All right. I think I covered this. What happens is I usually write a ton and then I end up, I never look down and I end up going through the whole thing. It becomes alive. Writing brings things alive within you. Okay. We said this last time, but Christ turns water into wine through his union in divine love with Magdalene. He solarizes her heart and the blood that flows through it. We talked about Christ turning water into wine. That is this principle at Solstice. That is this risen host, which represents the Logos. So the water in mysticism is blood. And the waters of our planet represent the bloodline of the planet. The rivers, the streams, the oceans are the blood. And so when we talk about turning water into wine, we're talking about the alchemy that happens in the blood. It's the solarization of the blood. And it happens through the purification of the Mars force. So Mars represents passion. It's red. It represents desire. Desire is red. Mars represents blood. So we transmute the blood, the Mars force, with Venus. The relationship between the archetypal lovers, Mars and Venus, is so powerful. Now, in the last video, we talked about something that's not often mentioned because Mars is the ancient ruler of Scorpio. It's very rarely referenced as being a ruler of Scorpio. Mars rules Scorpio and Venus rules Taurus. So if you haven't seen the Magdalene Mysteries, it's about this Mars-Venus axis. Before that, and this is so amazing, the first video, Mars and the Mother Mary Force, we talked about the axis of Mars in Aries and Venus in Libra. So both of the very first videos in this lecture series are about the alchemy of Mars and Venus. Now, we missed Gemini, but Gemini, we're connecting with Lilith and Magdalene. That will be in the next video. Cancer and Capricorn could also be a form of Mars and well, listen, Cancer, Mars is exalted in Capricorn. It's exalted. That means it has extra strength in Capricorn. And so it's like the Mars and the moon working together. The Cancer is ruled by the moon, the divine mother, the womb. And so they are both Venusian. Both the summer solstice and the winter solstice are Venusian. At the winter solstice, we do the birth of Venus as the radiant darkness, that fabric in the womb. And in summer solstice, we do, the rise of Venus as the fertile mother, the fertile mother. It's when because the sun in the north is in summer solstice. We follow in the mysteries, the path of the sun in the northern hemisphere, and it applies to both. The goddess, the fruitful goddess, is happening at summer solstice, and she's giving birth to her karma. So Saturn and Capricorn represents karma. Saturn is karma. So it shows the seeds that we sow are the fruit that we bear. The seeds that we sow become the fruit that we bear. We're talking about the divine seeds of Scorpio. We purify our seeds. This is the work of art of the feminine and the work of sacred fertility. It's very real, and it requires very, very real alchemy, but we purify these seeds, and then we give birth to the Son of Man, as Mother Mary did. We give birth to the Son, the Holy Son, through this process, which is not an easy undertaking, but it's why we're here. We start where we're at, and we start working our way through it. We have the goddess sacraments in Light Body Woman, and there are certain stages that have to be met. And we're actually not able to speak the sound current to them until we've verified. So there's very real, and that's why you hear the mysteries aren't spoken of. They're not meant to be the real ones, because it can only attach to a vessel that has verified. And so there's certain things that come to help us get there. In order to move through this process, we have to abandon everything else and start to do this work. This is the work, not the 3D. We walk this earth, even though we're somewhat above it. We're also in it. We're also grounded in it. But this is a time we've been starting to really say this, to not get caught up. Follow in faith what you shall connect within the outer world. Don't be worried that so-and-so is going to take over this, or so-and-so is going to turn the whole planet into this, or so. These things are happening, and we're walking through it. This is the time. I mean, the forces are real, and it's the time, but this is the work. Keep your eye, like the Christ walking on the water. Keep your eye on the Christ, and let that be what informs you on what to engage with. And hold love dear, love of your pets, love of your friends, love of your family. This is what I have to say, and then we'll take a break. So this is what I wanted to say about the transmutation of Lilith. And this is a code in light. This is our first code in Light Body Woman. This is the very first code. We have a set of codes in Light Body Woman, and how you behave when you think that nobody can see you is the number one marker of your progress with transmutation of the body of Lilith. It's not what people see that saying, go into the closet when you pray or go into the dark. It's what we do when we think nobody else is watching. Everything is known on the inner plane. That is where we build our body of Lilith. If we present one version and then we behave, which we all do. But to be very clear, but especially we work with this as the number one code in Light Body Woman, because women play a huge role in what's taking place on this planet right now. This is why I'm teaching the Light Body Woman lectures now, because it's in preparation for something that's coming. So, which I'm not able to really focus on right now, but it's coming. So as a woman, because we have the positive polarity in the inner plane, the actions we take are very, very heightened, but especially as we become spiritual. If I take from another woman, this is a code. I won't go too deeply into this because I could feel the whole thing coming in. If I disrespect another female temple, if I enter her space and think it's not seen, it is seen. The initiate sees everything. That's the Akashic record open. And there's many more mysteries to that. But as this is the saying, as we behave on earth, we behave in heaven. My capacity for truth on earth is how I will act in heaven. This is advanced. We work here with what we call the divine feminine spiritual hierarchies, or the feminine spiritual hierarchy is it has seated Light Body Yoga and Light Body Woman. And I think I'm ready. I want to share some stories about my own life. So we cannot, it's known in mysticism and even in occult, real, genuine wisdom. You can't make contact with a master until you can be in some form of resonance on that altar. You may get visions, and we all get visions. We all have streams, but to really, it's like having, the presence before the queen. I love the archetype of the queen. It's like you do not have the company or the presence or the ear of the queen unless you're invited, unless it's known that there will be respect, unless you're noble. So this is about the nobility of that consciousness. So in order to make company with these forces of nature and these divine master beings, we have to have verified that the way we treat others, because the way we treat others will be how we behave when we make their company. They're not interested in, this is the high and holy. We have our guidance. We all have guides right now. This is the high and holy feminine masters. Unless we have total integrity, we would be a risk, meaning everything is a chain of light in the ascended master kingdom. You cannot become a link in the chain until you've verified. This is going really deep, but that verification means in the presence of attack, in the presence of the forces. And we will get tested for lifetimes before new levels come in. You can still hold the light. Think of the Christ on the cross. It's to that last moment, the archetype of Christ on the cross, holding the divinity. Also, there's a moment of being human. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they've done. And there's a moment of, why have you abandoned me? There's a moment when these words come, when they're genuine. And it's at the moment of our own crucifixion. They can't be spoken. They have to come through the divine will. These are the words of regeneration, of the death into the dark hell realms of the earth. So, and I'm going to return to that. What I want to say is that this is what we work for. It's not to be perfect, and it's not to disregard being human. But, and especially in my work, I see it with women a lot because I'm teaching the divine feminine wisdom and certain things that I get to see. Certain levels of lust or competition or fear that manifest in betrayal, taking, trespassing without bringing light. This is the thing for all of us to know. If we feel that something is worthy for us to enter the space, we also must bring light. This goes for even in a partnership. If we have a partner that we're not showing the world, which is what the feminine faces a lot, and it could be a male or female in the body, if our partner is not proud of us and doesn't show us to the world, that's the same thing. That there's a reciprocity. That reciprocity is heightened if we think we're carrying spiritual energy. And we're always being watched. I'm going into the esoteric, but meaning like those who see us as a candidate for genuine initiation know every breath before we've even breathed. And so being a candidate for initiation means also purifying and preparing. There's various levels, and there's the mysteries, and then there's the higher mysteries. Mostly when people talking about the mysteries are talking about the mysteries, which are esoteric, but the higher feminine mysteries are much, much, much greater. And they're the ones that cannot be spoken of. But when we are preparing to be a part of the link in that chain, everything we do, if we enter someone's space, we should make sure that we're willing to bring light to that space, or that we understand the exchange of energy. This is solar Venus. In the world, physical things are the very lowest level of exchange. Energetic exchange is the truth of who we are. So when I use my desire force, if I lust after something, or if I trespass on something or betray something, you know that saying, I can't remember if it's in the Bible. I get so deep in these streams, I forget my training, my literal scriptural training. If you have, this isn't, I believe it's in Christianity. Like if you've committed something in your mind, you've committed it in the outer world. That's true. But we're not totally held accountable of that until we get higher on the path. And then we're 100% held accountable. And that's when we experience things like immediate, we get immediate feedback, whether or not we can see it. If we're clothed in the energies of this world, we won't see it. The environment is always speaking to us. The subtle voice is the true voice. I want to give an example of the subtle voice. There's also those loud, when you have a 3D disruption, that can be that they had to use the lower forces to get to you. Only the lower forces can make a 3D disruption, like a calamity or something that moves physical matter. So sometimes we talked about in the last video how the light forces have to use the dark forces to create movement or use humans. So this is what I want to give an example of the subtle voice. So we have our ego, and the ego represents also the energies of the devil in scriptures. The ego is the devil. Lucifer is more, we work with Lucifer here as the heart, as Venus. Lucifer is connected to Venus, and the devil's more the mind, Mercury. So, but the devil's also, they interact together, and they also shapeshift. When the lower mind is in charge, we feel like, I can do what I want. I've got it from here. I can do this. I know I'm meant to do that. I'll do it. I'll be bold. I'll take that move. I'll do this. Yeah, it might be questionable, but look, I'm a warrior. I'm on the path. That's the voice of the ego. The spirit speaks to us in a different way. It's that subtle feeling of your heart, and it's very quick. It's so subtle. We're talking about the vital energies now and the subtle energies. That's the energies of that host, that white sun. She can only speak to us through the vital energy. And so, and because she births the Christ force. So when you're doing something and you get that light hit and everything kind of expands for a split second, that's the confirmation. And you know it. And sometimes when we experience that, we experience it as shame, as an inversion, because we know we just knew something and then it shrinks back up because we have to transmute shame in order to hold that because we believe and we're programmed to believe that we're not worthy to hold it. That saying is often used, we're programmed not to believe, but it has various subtle levels of meaning. When you have that thing, like it just feels right for a moment, and you know that is your spirit speaking to you, that is your white sun. And so the key is, the true key is to hold it. But when we interact with this world, it's a very sophisticated thing to continue to hold it because the forces are doing nothing but trying to pull us out of it. Technology does nothing. When we watch technology, it's duality. You get these beautiful images and then a pull. Beautiful. However, you can learn to hold it and know when to put it away. It becomes very quiet to set it down, to walk away, to stop engaging, and to return until you know what to do. This is what we call the voice of the goddess. We have a couple of videos, I think, called that, the voice of the goddess. That is her in her high feminine form. It's the Holy Spirit. Now, can we hold? So what I see with religion in this world, there's a lot of influencers, a lot of people all of a sudden becoming this religion or that religion. It's okay. There's definitely some structure there to prepare for alchemy. Absolutely. And I grew up this way, and I see how it has enriched people, how it gives people boundaries, a structure to live by, a code. It's beautiful. And it holds the Christ force and it holds the goddess mysteries. But when we start combining the lower forces with it, it gets very arrogant and very overly sassy, meaning it's what we're seeing a lot right now, meaning there's moments of truth, but then it's just bathed in all this other stuff. I will leave that right there. I won't continue with that. But just to know, once you're walking the path of the initiate, you no longer take your cues from these things. You can be aware of them. But as a person who's working as a mystic now, you have to hold your heart as the voice of the silence. We talked about that last video. The inner voice, I think it's called Sadhguru in Eastern mysticism, but it's also the Arafant, and it's the harmonization of the elemental forces. It's the Christ force that speaks as the Logos. And it's, to tie it all together, it's that field of light that I got to taste and experience. It wasn't a vision, by the way. When you experience this, it's like you're right here, right now, and everything is that, and you're hearing it though. The light has a sound. You hear things like the music of the spheres, and it's that, but it's so much, it's even greater than that. It is love, and it takes faith to have that. It also takes some more work. It's in that moment that you've harmonized the astral, and you're seeing the astral light, the higher astral light. We've heard about this over the ages from great mystics and occultists and esotericists and saints and sages. They're there calling to us. The thing is, we have to also be careful. And I, it's a long time where I don't speak about these things out loud, but be careful how we speak about these things. So we have to be strong enough to hold it so that we don't get attacked. And there's a time to speak and a time to be silent. And sometimes I know in my own work, I was given the absolute stop sign for years at a time. You have to be able to sense what's what and what's coming at you to understand. I'm speaking to the deep, deep inner body right now to understand when to move and when to be still, when to speak and when to be silent, when to procreate or when to merge and when to abstain. Understand there is a time, there's that song, a time to laugh, a time to cry. There's a divine time for everything. The sound, time is, I just got goosebumps all over again. Time is Saturn. It's the divine mother. When you master time, you will receive the light of her body. That means when you can listen and hear the inner voice, when you understand how you use your lust, how you use your desire. We talked about some of the lower nature, like the competition, the shadows of Venus, which we're going to talk about in the Lilith video. Over the years, I've written quite a bit about the shadow of Venus, but there's a new way of looking at it that we're going to talk about in the next video. We talk about the shadow of Venus and the 666 energy. So in our own basic life, we can pray and say, I am, I know, I am. Just by doing the solar Venus prayer, I am in the 7 directions, you're entering the state of faith. By entering the state of faith, you enter the state of harmony. By entering the state of harmony, you're inside the sun. You're in the higher astral level with access to the divine plane and the earth. By entering that state, you're christening yourself with her holy wisdom, the Virgin Sophia, the dove of the Holy Spirit. These are words, but happy be the one who make them greater than words, who make them a reality, a lived experience, a tasted elixir, a verification, a seal in the auric field for eternity. We call the 7 holy seals of Magdalene. And so just take a moment here. I am, I know, I am. That is Gnosis. That is divine feminine Gnosis of Magdalene. And it's when I can say, I am. I am, by the way, is coded to Venus and the sun. So this work here, we've done mentorship after mentorship in the solar feminine. I think my last mentorship was the solar feminine woman, the Christos Sophia. This is I am. This is I am. It's gnosis. It means union with the Christic force. There's so much around it, and yet it's simple, but yet the wisdom matters. But for right now, the simple tuning in is the totality of the wisdom. So that's when all else fails, when words are taken, when everything is stripped, which it inevitably always is on this planet, we have I am. And this is the truth about the self, the I. Okay, so I'm going to just see how much longer I want to go. Let's see. Okay, I have, I'm just going to take a peek at what I have and then decide about what I want to talk about myself. Oh my gosh. I talked about the male mysteries, the divine feminine principle. I usually write like hundreds of pages, literally. And I mean, I've gone through a whole stack of computer paper like that thick to write one of these because I open the stream and it doesn't stop. So oftentimes, but then I just end up speaking what I think, not what I think, but what happens to come through. So I'm just taking a quick glance to see. Oh, so destabilized. This is nice to say. The constant state of destabilized perception is destroying the human heart. This is a socially engineered state of consciousness. So we're breaking into, we just went into a different frequency, especially aimed at controlling. Oh, this gets deep. I'm going to save this for next time. So, destabilized consciousness. What do you see out there in the field? Destabilized consciousness, war, media. I don't condemn the media because I read the New York Times every day, and I also check in with different. I just do because I'm a New Yorker, and I can't, and because also I get to see in behind some of it and know, but the media, it's like we're not meant to be hermits in this lifetime, but at the same time, the destabilized consciousness, to see through the duality, to see through some of the lower consciousness, that's important. But this, if you feel destabilized for a very long period of time, say the prayer, the Solar Venus prayer, because the stabilization is what produces the vision of the light. You have to have, you can't, there's no way to have that level of perception until you've stabilized. So yes, we're human and it's beautiful and we bow to being human. But if you want to talk high, the highbrow work of the mysteries, it requires some work. And that's when we get spiritually mature, we grow up and we start to take it seriously. Because the times we're living in are prophesized to be, less than comfortable. So in order to maintain a certain level of spiritual stability, they're very important. I said we are going to do the light body sun ritual. I think we should do that next because it's for the solstice. And then I'll see if I was going to talk about myself. I was going to talk about myself in my story and some of the things that brought me to this work because they're very real. And when I look back at, and they're all in my writing, but when I look back at some of them, it's hard. It just brings me to the greatest humility because we understand the wounds as the holy stars of who we really are as a soul. So I'm going to take a peek here. So grateful for your Shannon. So grateful for your teachings, presence, and wisdom. Can acknowledge the incarnation of Venus. You oh 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 yeah. Yeah, we come in embodying certain forces, and it's when we recognize what they are that those masters that we're talking about can reach us. It's not that they're arrogant in any way. They're waiting patiently for us to be able to, so we can have their ear and they can have our ear. And that's a very real thing that comes from understanding what we're made of and who we are. I'll just share my name. It's one of the things we always do in Light Body Woman. For those of you who've been in it, we always start with our name. The name. We talked earlier about the holy name of God. And because I have a lineage working with mantra and sound, I was taught to look at my name. And that just opened up into more and more and more. Your name holds very special things, and it holds it by the vowels, by the consonants, and by the syllables, the sounds. All of it is alive. So I wasn't in my. I was in my. It wasn't until I was in my 30s that I found out that my name Shannon means wisdom. I share this with you as an example of understanding certain things about yourself. This is a personal revelation. At the time I found that out, I was studying in the deepest inner wisdom. And when I found that out, it jolted me because I thought, I'm going to see what my name means. The name means wisdom. There's all different ways of looking at it. It also means water from the well. The water from the well. It corresponds to Athena, the goddess of wisdom. And this is the name Shannon. It also corresponds to the owl, which in the feminine mysteries represents wisdom. It can, the whole spectrum of wisdom. And so When I found out my name meant water from the well as well. And then I also found out many more things about, there's many, it's a book. Your name is your mantra. This is how I was taught when I was studying mantra, because it's the word that you hear throughout your lifetime over, and more than any other word you hear your name. So, and then I found out. I'll tell this because this leads into my work in fertility, and then I might keep some of the rest for later. We'll finish with the light body sun ritual. So it's just taking me in that direction. So my name Shannon is wisdom, and I came to teach the wisdom. The wisdom is also Sophia. Marie, when I started to really work with Mary, and I had grown up with Mary, Mother Mary, and Mary Magdalene on my dresser. This was the feminine archetypes of my entire life. And so, and I always wished I didn't like the name Shannon growing up. I wanted to be named Mary. So when I found out, it wasn't until I was older I truly understood Marie as the sea, that sea that I was talking about of light, that ocean of light, that is Mahi. In the lower world, it's the sea of bitterness and suffering. And also we talked about salt. So you don't drink the salt water. You have to transmute it and use the salt as the power. So Mahi also is this, so it's the sea and it's the star of the sea. So it's the star of the waters. And so I realized I had water from the well, the star of the waters, also corresponding to the Mary mysteries, both Mother Mary and Magdalene. And then my name before I got married had the word egg in it, EGG. It was egger. So my whole life, my friends, as a nickname, my friends, and even people I didn't know, I had a lot of brothers and sisters, a big family, so people knew our last name. I was called Egg as a nickname, or Eggs. Like my friends would be like, Eggs. Like that was my literal name. I just got goosebumps. So funny, or Egg. And there's much more. I'll share more maybe into the next video. But my work at a certain age, in fact, I know what I'm going to share, became about fertility. It's so crazy when I look back that my name, my whole life, I was called Egg or Eggs every day, the ovum. So I just found this paper. I'm going to share a little bit about. This was a paper I wrote my sophomore year in college, and it's called My Honest Prayer. So I'll tell this part of the story. So I grew up with the name Egg. I also recently found out the city that I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, meant children of the sun. I only found this out recently. So I lived on the West Coast my whole life until I moved then I went to LA and New York City. The city I grew up in meant children of the sun. And also, and I'm sharing this with you as an exercise of looking at your name and who you are. My nickname from my parents my whole life was Doa, or Shenandoah. My whole life, my mom called me Shenandoah. My dad called me Shenandoah. They made up a song about me from the time I was a baby, wearing that little pink bracelet that said Shannon. Shenandoah means beautiful daughter from the stars. Beautiful daughter from the stars. I only found that out in the last 10 years, Shenandoah. My name now also, Shannon Port, is a port in Ireland. My mother's whole lineage is from Ireland. So I ended up marrying someone with the name Port, my son's father. And port obviously is a transit for things coming and going. So I went from egger to port. So when you look at the whole name, it's the wisdom seaport. And then you get the suffering embedded in the middle, the mysteries in the middle name. The wisdom seaport. And so the name Port is I'm happy to have that name. And so even though I separated from my son's father, I kept that name because I became that name. I went from this archetype to this archetype, and then also it's my son's name. So this is part of who you are because we are named. Now you could also say the name doesn't matter, but in the higher mysteries, the name holds a greater frequency. So I went from being the egg, the ovum, and the mother, and my son was conceived in the rituals of fertility that I was teaching, to being the port. And then when I came into my mother stage, I got to really start teaching this wisdom. This is where Art of the Feminine was birthed from in my own life. I only found this paper recently. It's called My Honest Prayer, and I wrote it in English 201, my sophomore year. And I wrote it during the winter when the sun was in the sign of Capricorn. I got a 4.0 on it. I remember my English teacher, and she put, "Wow, excellent, excellent expression." So this paper is about. It's called My Honest Prayer, and it's about my life as a dancer. So I just got these goosebumps again. Jesus is so present right now. When I was very young, still in my teens, I started to receive fertility work. I was Catholic. I had been raised Catholic. I was not involved with anything whatsoever to do with the goddess. Nothing new age. My parents weren't hippies. They were born in that generation, but they weren't. I didn't grow up in that energy. I grew up with religion. I did grow up a dancer, though. I grew up with dance and theater, and but around at a certain age, I started to get up every morning and dance, and I would start out as if I was in the womb, and this was just happening, and it was happening after some very specific events that happened in my life, which I won't share now. This is what this paper is about. It was happening when I was in college, and I started receiving fertility, the work that would become my work. It came through movement and through music. It wasn't until I was in New York City, and then there's all the years in between where I lived in Seattle. But when I moved to New York City, I trained in professional acting school, worked as an actor, doing all the performing arts stuff. But I was also deeply engaged in the study of mysticism, and I was teaching yoga. And when I was teaching yoga before I was married, and before I even had the name Port, I wasn't married, I was getting asked all the time about fertility. And I didn't even connect the two. So finally, after about a year, I was teaching yoga, and it hadn't become light body yoga yet. I started to work with women. And it was at that time that I realized that this work I had been given through dance, and I'd wrote this paper about it, was inside my body. And I didn't even realize that my name Egg had anything to do with it until I got deeper into the mysteries. But in this, I write about how dance was my true religion, and how I had grown up Catholic, but there was something inside me trying to break me open. And that this was at the time when I stopped practicing. I could no longer see that as the true altar of my soul, because what I was doing with dance had me connected to the cosmos and connected to conception itself. So that's what this essay is about. And then I compare it. I do some comparative literature. I compare to a few other writings of women who I think were like feminists. It was college. So, but I start to talk about how dance became my religion, and it overtook the other one. So I also talk about passion, and I'm talking about everything about Venus without even understanding it. So I started to work with women in fertility, and let me see where I can go in the amount of time we have here. Light body yoga was born. This is going way, way back. I started doing fertility rituals with women. Now, I was so innocent to it that I didn't make any claims and I wasn't claiming any great work. I did not even know where the work was coming from. As someone who had been trained as an actor and a dancer, it was very natural to work through my body and to receive. When you're an artist, whether you're a writer, a performer, a musician, you're channeling the Elohim. So you will often hear someone who writes a novel say it was already there. It came in. It was already there. That is the power of receiving through the heart of the artist. Scientists too. Einstein has writings about how the formula was there. I've read over the years many of people just saying it's in there. It's already in the Akashic. I'm just bringing it through. So that's how this work came through without any formal instruction, without understanding how I had to break from that last path and become on the more Gnostic path of the divine feminine. And I had the impulse to trust because it was just like when you're on stage as an actor, you have to trust. So I was used to that. Working with people, profound things started happening. And through word of mouth, more and more people started contacting me. At this time, then I got married and left New York City. So I was getting calls from people, even what you would call A-list people, because word of mouth, when you do this kind of thing and it's very real, spread. There was never any even consideration of it being, I didn't know where it was going, but this is how the fertility work began. The name egg, the training in the Venusian arts, the receiving the God, the dances that I received in those years were so profound. I mean, I was receiving the entire body of scriptures in these dances. The whole Akashic record of the great feminine scriptures were encoded archetypally in this work. I teach this in light body dance now and in light body yoga, but this is the way that the artist communicates with the unseen world. And it's very real. Now, there's all kinds of levels. And so you can I've talked about receiving the lower currents. I've given examples and videos in acting workshops where I realized I was taken over by a lower current. We're all doing this all the time. But this happened to be this was a direct link with Venus and with the cosmic womb. And then later, it wasn't until I really, really started working Kabbalistically and understanding, the true origins of why I was here and what I was doing, what I had come to do, that it blew my mind open. And so that led to Art of the Feminine, and it led to, I think I'll tell one more part of the story. This is how I'll finish this part of the story. There's lots of things that I want to share just so that it's held in these videos as where Art of the Feminine was birthed from. So fast forward, I'm married, I'm living outside the city, and I'm doing fertility rituals. Crazy, never in my life even knew what they were, but now I'm doing them. I'm getting more people that are coming to me who are pretty well known and I'm thinking I should probably make this, start to write this and formalize it a bit. So that's what I did. I sat down and I created an 1.5-hour ritual because I was already doing the rituals, but I just put down everything that I was being given and I wrote it down. And then I planned, like I would always do. Anytime I'd work with anyone, I would spend hours in preparation. And so we moved into an old farmhouse. My husband and I at the time, we got married and then moved into the country. We rented an old farmhouse and I had the entire basement with like old French drains and little windows as my sacred space. So I planned to rehearse this ritual. So I wrote it all out, and then I did my ritual that I would always do. I would always take a bath and wear certain clothes and set up in my altar space as it was back then. And then my space, I always dance. So for when I would do a ritual, I would dance. So I prepared and I went down and I began the ritual. And I was only doing this so that I would be prepared now to work with other people using this ritual. And so as I was moving through it, I felt the energies come in, but I normally when I would just walk through anything, I wasn't actually trying to anchor them. But what happened in this ritual was that I found myself saying it for myself. And I found that all of a sudden, I had never even considered for myself yet. I had just gotten married and had not even thought yet about having children. I come from a huge family, so I wasn't, and I'm the oldest. So I had my whole life of taking care of little kids, like the oldest daughter, constantly babysitting. So I wasn't in a hurry to have a child. But in the ritual, I all of a sudden had the connection with my son, with his soul, and still didn't quite understand what was happening. But throughout the hour and a half, I found myself saying my name. I was speaking in the first person instead of for somebody else. And it was almost like I could not stop it. It was moving me. This started as a mere rehearsal, which I was used to doing as an actress. A dress rehearsal became probably the most powerful ritual that I have ever done. And so afterwards, I felt this sense of beauty around me. Like I had never felt so beautiful and so pure as I did that day. I'll never forget. I did it in the afternoon. Oftentimes I would do rituals in the evening or late night or at midnight. Did this in the sun. We had little windows. This was an old, hundreds of years old brick stone farmhouse in Bucks County where I moved, and light was beaming through onto the altar. And I just felt so beautiful. I felt like I had seen who I really am in that moment. And I took my time and I, kind of put everything back in its place. And then this is a basement. I'm in a deep old basement in an old farmhouse. It's pure stone. This was my cave. All of a sudden, then I walk over and I do what I always do, and I ascend out of this basement, stair by stair. And as I'm rising up these stairs of this dark, dark basement with its French drains and this fertility ritual, I become aware of ascending. And I'm really only going to the first level of my own home, but something about that moment was lit. And there were like angels along both sides of the stairway. And so I walk up and then I let it go. And my husband at the time worked from home. And so it was an old home with wood floors and it was very cool. I just remember going up and looking at him. He had an office and it was always really sunny in his office, and just feeling this sense of peace. And so within days, I conceived my son. Within days of that ritual. This is the beginning of my work in fertility. It's very rare that I say it, but I've been said it's okay. I share this when I teach in Light Body Woman in the long mentorships, but I don't think I've shared it in its fullness here. Within a week, I was pregnant. I had conceived. And looking back, the wildest thing, very wild, is that I conceived on Mother's Day. And it was within days of this ritual. I did not know I conceived. I was not consciously trying to conceive. I hadn't even thought, other than the fact that I've just done this ritual, and knew I'd have a child. And I knew how real it was, but my son came in. He got right in on Mother's Day, which is so, when you really understand how the mysteries work, you begin to see that nothing is insignificant. When you're traveling a certain path, every single thing. It's already coded. Everything is coded. And so my son, a couple weeks, it was a few weeks later, probably about 3 weeks later, I was talking to my little sister and I said, I have this cramp. I was talking about some cramps I was having. No idea. And my sister said, Shannon, you are pregnant. All I did was tell her that I was having an ache. And she said, you're pregnant. And I said, no. She said, you are pregnant. My sister knew. And she said, come over right away. And we're doing a pregnancy test. In my life, I had never done a pregnancy test ever. I was already I was married and I had fortunately not had to, but it was the first one I ever did. And so I went to her house. We got in her big Suburban and drove around and went to the store. I went in and got it. And she told me where they were. I didn't even know. I walked out. I was waving it, laughing. Did not think I was pregnant. I did not. I was like, this is funny. We're doing this. It's a sister thing to do together. She lived in the country too. We had just moved close to each other for the first time. I thought this is a real sister moment, never thinking I was actually pregnant. So she drives me back to her house. She stays in the car. She's like, run in and take the test. So I run in to her house. We're at her house. I go in the bathroom. I take the test. Never thinking, I didn't even consider it, but I was laughing taking it. I set it down. And I can't remember what you do when you take it. I looked down, and when I saw it and it said that I was pregnant, I started to faint. That was how it impacted me. I'll never forget. I saw it and I felt myself fainting, and I grabbed the wall and I put my hand on the counter because I knew if I didn't, that was it. I was going out. Everything started to spin inside me. Everything went black and I saw stars. It's like I saw the cosmos in that moment. I have goosebumps right now. This is how my work in fertility started. So then after a minute or two, I get myself together. I look at it again. My heart is pounding and I'm in shock. Why I should be in shock, I don't know. And I'm now married. I'm only married for 6 months, but I find out I'm pregnant. I walk out, and to this day, she says, I will never forget the look on your face. She said, you were white. She said, I walked out holding up the pregnancy test, and she looked at me and gasped and went, oh, I said, I'm pregnant. So I got in the car and she's like, let's go. We just wanted to drive and talk. I was shaking for the next hour. My son's father was at home working. He worked from home in an unair conditioned farmhouse in front of a computer where he'd be dripping every day because it was so hot in that house. And so we talked. I'll never forget it. We went and got a bagel. I had just moved from New York City, where bagels are big. We went and got a bagel and cream cheese, sat and talked, and she was pregnant at that time. It's so amazing because when you think of the Bible and you think of Elizabeth and Mary, and they're both pregnant at the same time, and it was Elizabeth, I'm just looking at the archetypes, and my sister knew I was pregnant. She said, you are pregnant, and I didn't know. I went to meet with her. We got the test. I find out I'm pregnant, and then she sits with me and tells me what's going to happen now, because she already knows she's pregnant with her third child. So I get home, my husband is working at the desk, and I'm like, he has no idea. We haven't even talked about kids yet. I go and get an envelope, and I put the test, the actual pregnancy test, in the envelope, seal it, put a heart, and go in and set it on his desk. He's on a conference call. He worked in the coaching industry at the very beginning of the coaching industry. So he's coaching like thousands of people, and he's on this conference call. And I just come up with the idea to do this. I go and I set it on his desk with a heart on it. And then I go in the other room. Our bedroom was close to his office. So I get in bed and I just sit there. And then all of a sudden I hear, he screams, oh my God, he's on this conference call. He's like, come in here. And he's like, he was laughing and he was screaming. And he said, are you for real? Is this real? And then he's telling the people on the call, I can't believe this. wife didn't. We were newly married. He was really happy to tell everyone this, and he's like, she just gave me this. And so that was the conceiving of my own child that came in through this work that I had been given 13 years earlier. There was exactly 13 years between the dance and between my own conception of my child. I feel like I'm going to go, I will tell a few more details about this. I feel like because I'm on it, I'm not going to return to it again. So I'll tell, there's some really mystical things that happen. My son's name, independently, his father, and his father's mother, which is my son's grandmother, came up with the same name. His name is Jacob or Yaakov. My husband and I decided that we wouldn't tell each other. We would each come up with a name. And then he's Jewish, and in their lineage, there's a very specific thing about the naming. The naming, because it comes from the Jewish lineage, it's all about the name, is often for a family member. So eventually his mother called and said, I want to talk to you about the name. And we were like, oh God, we know the name. We don't want to be told. We were like, no. We don't want to be told what to name. But he said, just say okay, and then we'll figure it out. But we'll let her come and tell us what should be part of his name. So this happened when my husband and I sat down at the time. My son's father, I should say, we're no longer married. We both showed each other the name, and it was the same name. We both chose Jacob, or the Hebrew is Yaakov. And we were like, whoa, that was wild. And he said, yeah, it's funny. He said, growing up, I always liked the movie 16 Candles. And there was a character named Jake, and he kind of looked like him. And he's like, I always thought I want to have a Jake. And then he had his bar mitzvah on the feast of Jacob. And we had on our wall the angel, Jacob climbing the stairway to heaven. Jacob's ladder. We had that hanging on our wall. I had never even considered it because it was his bar mitzvah picture. I didn't even know I knew it was very beautiful. It was a paper cutout, one of those paper, and it was gorgeous. And we had it framed and hanging in our place. But I didn't even understand he was bar mitzvahed on the feast of Jacob's ladder. I'm not sure how they say it. So we both chose the name Jacob. And then when his mother came to ask us about the name, which is a common thing in their lineage, she had chosen the name Jacob. So we had this trinity that all independently came up with the very same name. Now, his father's name is also, he comes from a lineage of these archetypal names. Jacob is very archetypal in the scriptures. Jacob is a patriarch. But Jacob also means sun on the tree of life. It corresponds to Tiferet as the sun. I didn't know this at the time. I had no idea. I was already studying Kabbalah, but I did not fully grasp this. And so I'll tell you the next two parts of this story. This is solar Venus, and that's why I bring this in. It's fertility, and it's the Divine Mother. So I had I had a very auspicious pregnancy. When my son was born, I had no drugs, not even an Advil. I did not plan it that way. I'm just realizing there's so much around his birth to tell it all at once. But when I gave birth to him, here's another aspect. A girlfriend of mine was coming from New York City, and she came to me and said, I would like to give you a blessing way. It was my first child. We were very close friends. She lived in New York City. She's like, I'm going to give you a blessing way. She was working with that energy way back before they blew up and they were still very much not known. Like, it was still when blessing ways were not what everybody does. She had come into this. And so I was like, what's a blessing way? And she's like, I'm going to bless you. So we had planned to do the blessing way on a specific day. January 15th. It was a Saturday. She was going to drive down an hour and a half from New York City, and just my son's father and I and her, we was just going to be the three of us. She was going to hold the blessing way for me as a mother getting ready to have birth. So what happened was that morning, I had a pain in my back, one pain. I think I was mopping the floor. We had this old farmhouse, and I was getting the house ready for her to come down, and so I was mopping the floor, which is also a common thing. I was by hand, which is a known old wives' tale that when you mop the floor, you go into labor. I hadn't heard that at that time. So all of a sudden, I screamed. I said, "Oh my God!" I had this pain in my back, and I sat down, and I told my son's father at the time. I said, "Wow, I don't know what that was," and I couldn't even walk for a moment. And then things started to change. My physicality started to change, and again, about a half hour later, I called my sister and I said, it's the craziest thing. I had this pain in my back. And then I described to her what I felt like. And she said, again, my sister, she knew I was pregnant. She says, "Shannon, you are having the baby." And I said, "No, but I haven't had any labor." And she's like, "No." I told her what was happening. She's like, "You're having the baby right now. You need to go to the hospital." So I told my son's dad. He called the doctor. The doctor said, "No, no, 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 no." The doctor's son was like a state champion hockey player, and they were in their tournament. And so my son's doctor said, like my obstetrician, I forget what they're called, but the doctor I was seeing said, "Okay, well, this was about, I think it was about just before 11." He said, "Okay, well, call me tonight." So he says, basically, call back 12 hours from now and I'll check in on her. A few minutes later, I call my sister and she said, "You're having the baby. You need to go to the doctor right now." So I scream, "I'm having the baby." And so he calls the doctor, and he says, "My wife said, well, she's having the baby now. She needs to come in. We're going to the hospital." So the doctor drops everything. He has to leave. He's out of town at a hockey game in a tournament, like this big tournament. And so I get driven to the hospital, and we get there, and we're so, like, I couldn't even sit down in the car. I could no longer sit. I was standing trying to fit in a car. We get out of the car, and I get put in a wheelchair and I get taken in. And then we go up to the room, and they examine me, and she looks at me and says, "You're ready to deliver." And I've had no labor. And I'm like, "Well, what about the epidural?" I'm like, I've been walking every day. I didn't plan it necessarily, but I knew about it. I never planned a natural birth. Even though it was very trendy, and I was a yoga teacher and so many women had midwives, planned births. I just trusted. I don't know. Had a nice doctor. We were in the country. I was so relaxed. The pregnancy it was so magical, even though I did have morning sickness. I hadn't even thought that far ahead. I didn't even know that much about it. And a couple things I read seemed way too far out. So she looked at me. She said, "You're having the baby." And I said, "What about the epidural?" And she looked right in my eye and said, If I give you this," she said, "you will be in labor for the next few hours." She said, "You are ready to have the baby right now." And so she said, "You can choose." She said, "That will slow down the process." And I said, "I'll have the baby." I had not even so much as an Advil. I had prayed. I had been given a mantra this is going to sound wild, but Archangel Michael. And my son's father's name was Michael Avram. Was Michael. And the angel that was working with my son's delivery was Michael. And I had a mantra. It was a singing mantra. And so I just said, "Okay, let's do this." I led back. I went into deep meditation and called in the heavenly host of angels was there. I was in a different reality while I was giving birth, on no medication. The doctor wasn't even there yet. I had at this point just a nurse, because he was driving from the thing. And finally he comes walking in. I've been there about 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And so we start the process of delivering my son. And I'm in an altered state. I already know how to go into this altered state where I'm in communication and I'm being shown that the birth is happening not only in the physical world, but it's also happening on another plane. And I'm totally in the zone. Even though for a split second I was like, I'm having a baby with no pain pills. I've never even contemplated this before, but here I am. And so the doctor, I only found out afterwards from my son's father, he said, it was the craziest thing. The doctor was telling you what to do, and you would say, no, I'm going to do this. I don't remember it because I was in deep prayer. I knew I was there, but I didn't have total recollection of what I was saying. He said he would say, do it this way. And you'd say, I'm going to do it this way. Not in a resistant way, but I was being shown what to do specifically. Like they were showing me when to breathe, when to exhale, when to push, all of these things you do when you give birth. And this is the summer solstice is the solstice of the mother and fertility and birth. And that's why I bring in the fertility, and also to show you how my work specifically came from fertility. So he was born immediately. Within 20 minutes, I gave birth. And obviously, it was the happiest moment of my life. And they put him on top of me. And my sister had booked from a half hour away, got there in time for the birth. She was in the room, and his father was to my right. And the second they put him on me, his father spoke, and my son literally went like this and turned his head to his dad. And it was the craziest thing. Everyone went, oh my gosh, he knows his voice. My son, all during my pregnancy, my son's father worked in the office right next to me, and I had morning sickness, which lasted for a few months. So I'd be lying down. So he heard his father's voice, he heard his father's voice. Goosebumps all through when he was in my womb. And so the second he was born into the material world on the mother's belly, he turned to his father. And let me see if there's anything else to say about that. It took me a long time. Oh, I've told this story in videos before, so I almost meant to tell it now. I received what's called, I don't know what they call it, but I went into this state of pure transcendence, which lasted a month. After I gave birth, I merged with the whole planet, and I became what I can only describe as the archetype of the Divine Mother. My whole aura, I felt like every person I saw had come through me. This is a feeling that I could have never understood until I experienced it. But I walked around for the next month as if I was the mother of everyone. Everyone I interacted with, I was literally their mother. I knew they had come through me and that they were holy. So a thing now, just jumping back quickly, my girlfriend that had come from New York City, my husband called her to say she's having the baby because she was on her way down to give me a blessing way ceremony. And so we knew that we were like, call her because we won't be there. We'll be at the hospital. So he called her and said, she's giving birth. Do you still want to come? She's in the hospital. And she said, yeah, I'm coming. She drove down from New York City to Bucks County and met me at the hospital right after I'd given birth. She told me, she said, it's the craziest thing. She said, I opened my date book. We both had Wee Moon date books. Wee Moon is the moon goddess date book. She had given me my first Wee Moon date book. She said, I opened my calendar, my date book, and she told me this right after I gave birth. She said, look it. And she had not written, instead of writing blessing way, and she had really pretty writing. It was very artful. She had written birthing day. She didn't even realize she wrote it. She had been doing these blessing ways. So she meant to say, January 15th, I'm doing the blessing way for Shannon. Without realizing it, she prophesied birthing day. And we just sat there. I was holding, she came down. I was in such good spirits after I gave birth. I felt this euphoria. And she showed me and she brought me all this beautiful food. And we just both were like, wow. Well, she's very spiritual. So we were like, wow, this is it. Like, we weren't that surprised, but yet it's looking back, it's one of the many things around this birth. So then there's probably some other things in there, but I'm going to finish with this that directly relates to my work. A couple days later, when I was in New York City, I had one time gone to see a woman who did soul readings. She was also an actress, a Broadway actress, and I met her through an ex-boyfriend who was an actor, and I was an actor who knew her somehow through theater, his theater friends. And so I had gone to see her one time when I lived in New York City. And so now we've moved down to Bucks County. We've only been there months. And we've been there a year. I'm sorry, now I've had the baby. It's been about a year. She finds out that I had a baby and she said, I'm supposed to come and see you. I forget, let me just remember how that happened. I think, before I gave birth, I let her know. I don't know how we came into contact again. It was some other coincidence. And she contacted me and said, I need to come to you. I didn't even know this woman. I was never the type that went to psychics or did a lot of stuff like that, but I had been taken to her and really liked her. And she was a Broadway actress, so like we had the acting in common. She said, I'm meant to come see you. So I'm thinking, this woman I don't even know is going to drive an hour and a half. And she said, no, I'm meant to come see you. So a couple days after I gave birth, my son was under a week old. She drove down and she's like, oh my God, this farmhouse, this whole idyllic setting. You're in the country. And she came in and she sat with my son's father and I. We all sat together. We had a cozy old French, like wood, stone fireplace going with wood floors and just this beautiful old house. It was so cozy, and it was January. There was a lot of snow on the ground. So she talked to us, and then my son's father left the room, and she talked to us about a couple things. And then she said to me, this woman had no idea of how I conceived my son. She had no idea at the time that I did fertility rituals. She knew I had acted in New York City. She didn't even know I had already founded Light Body Yoga. She knew none of that. She knew that I was an actress in New York City. So she didn't know my background. She did not know how my son was conceived and the ritual. So after my son's father left the room, she said, you have a new member in your field on your team. She said something like that. And she said, do you know who I'm talking about? And I just went, oh my God, my whole light went off in my head. And I realized the ritual and the birth and all the things leading up to it, his name. And I said, who? And she said, Shannon, the Divine Mother has fully anchored into your field. She had no idea of my work with fertility or the Divine Feminine. And she said, and this is how she told me, because she herself was an actress and she knew I would understand this language because she knew I was an actress. We had met through a fellow actor friend. She said, it would be like, she said, you are mentoring with her. She said, she is your guiding force in everything you do. And she said, it would be like if you were a new if you just got your first starring role on Broadway and you were a young actress starting out and you got the lead role, and if the queen of Broadway, the queen of the actors, the most seasoned, decorated theater actress from Broadway came to you and said to you, I am your mentor in this work. You will one day be me. So she said it would be as if this queen actress on Broadway told this new, fresh, young actress that just got her first starring role, I am your mentor. And one day you will be as decorated and as accomplished as me. We are the same. And I am with you and I'm guiding everything you do. So she told me this. And then she said, Shannon, you have been the physical daughter of the Divine Mother when she had an earth embodiment, which was at that time, it broke my brain. I was doing this work, but I didn't. This is 2005. So it was 2004 and 2005, all of this happened. She said, in one of her physical lifetimes, you were her daughter. And now she's returned to you and you're having a role, the circuitry is becoming, she didn't say reversed, but there's a roles are being, I think of the figured eight, she's being you and you are being her, like that. So I wrote it all down. I was already teaching light body yoga. I was already doing fertility rituals that had been given. I had already written this paper 13 years earlier. I had the name Egg for most of my life. All of a sudden I knew it was then and there that light body yoga. Now, light body yoga had already come through Magdalene. That's a whole other story that's as potent. That's because light body yoga came in 2003 and 2004 before I conceived. But this is when I knew the weight of what Magdalene, it came through the Magdalene, we call the Magdalene Magi, what they meant when they said, light body yoga will be a pure feminine stream of the teachings of our lineage. So all of this started, all of a sudden I realized the weight of those words that till that time, I'm just receiving like an artist, meaning I receive the stream. It's natural for me. I'm doing it. I'm following through. I'm carrying out. But when this woman came to me after I gave birth, like the three wise men, she came and she said she spoke. So in the mysteries, when the word is spoken, the archetype is activated. There's a whole depth to that wisdom. At the time, I wrote it down and I closed the book and we had a lovely afternoon and she went home. It wasn't even until years later that I let myself take in the whole profundity of all of those experiences. They were all written down because I'm a writer. But it wasn't until Light Body Woman and all the things started to happen. Everything on this platform that I have done has not been planned. My plan was wanting to be an actress. And that's what I wanted to be. Truthfully, I gave up that work because of this work. After certain things happened, I fully embraced this work. But this wisdom that we're working with now, I'm giving you now for those who are meant to hear it, the understanding. This is how she works through us. And when we're really carrying wisdom in or becoming a vehicle for it, it's very, very sanctified and real and holy. And so then there's many, many more things in understanding the depth of the Venusian connection. And even when I talked about the teacher that I worked with when I was working with the power of the word in New York City, some really profound things were said from him to me about Venus. And in fact, he said to me, because I shared with him my fertility work at a certain point, and he said, yes, your work has come to birth the sixth race. At that time, that was in 2006. I didn't quite even comprehend that whole notion, but I knew every molecule of my being had been holding this as since I was a little girl, and it was bursting forth from me. And especially everything, I have the final story to tell about my son, because it also relates to this male teacher I'm talking about. All the things around the fertility, the teaching fertility and the birthing him, which would become my work. I mean, it's all been transcribed now into the work we do here and the spoken word and the archetypal wisdom. It came through archetypes. That's how it comes. And it comes through, you can't pre-plan it. You can't prepare for it. It just opens. The coordinates of our aura and our soul just pop when they're ready. And that's why we live in faith. You could no more plan to be anything other than who you are meant to be. I say this especially to women. Never try to be another woman. The second you do that, you give up your true mission, your true power. Never take from another woman her experiences, her words, her life, her love, her family, anything. That is the code number one in Light Body Woman, that we are responsible. We cannot even fathom beginning this path until we understand how we use the deep desire energy of the feminine that comes from our heart. When we use it and misuse it, we're living in the 3D world. We're living in the kingdom of Caesar, the kingdom of the old gods, the kingdom of Mars, the fallen Mars force. When we learn to operate as our true identity, our solar Venus, I am, we step into an entirely different frequency of reality. The things I'm sharing with you today, and I'll finish with something my son told me at the age of 4, which is the age of Mars on one level, as it corresponds to the Emperor. My son also has an Aries moon, Aries ascendant, and Aries North Node, and he's born in Capricorn. He has the full male energy. He's born in Capricorn, as is the Christ. The Christ force is always birthed in Capricorn. So, which has some correspondences I'll talk about. So, as a woman, treat women with respect. There's a lot of talk about sisterhood and women uplifting each other. We're not talking about the outer, we're talking about the inner. Anything taken from another woman is ripped out of our own, it's taken from our own light body. We have to be, as women at this time, now this goes for, we all have a woman inside us, even men, so I'm speaking to everybody. At this time on the planet, if you want to work with the higher forces, this comes directly from the divine feminine spiritual hierarchies that govern this work through the Divine Mother that was anchored through the Magdalene Magi. Your number one understanding, it is the feminine that was betrayed in this world, and therefore the masculine is birthed from a betrayed mother. We have, and it perpetuates the seed line. We talk about the holy blood of Magdalene as the solarized blood of the divine feminine, the wife, the mother, the lover, the priestess. It is through this work that her blood is renewed. You cannot sidestep this work. And this is the age of Venus, the age of the goddess mysteries, the goddess Epoch, That means the heart cannot be sidestepped. We all have to know the value of love. The last thing I will say about my son, so my son was also, see, he was raised in mantra because I had a genuine mantra practice. He knew all his mantras by the time he was like 3. And he was raised in the divine feminine frequency because my son was, there's also the details of his conception other than it, which I won't get into here, other than, but which I will be able to at another time, other than the fact that he was conceived on Mother's Day, are profound. They're truly, truly the greatest mystery. So he was conceived in this, he gestated and was built, his body in my body while I was in this frequency. He was birthed through he chose his birth. I did not choose to have it be a natural birth. I didn't choose anything. He chose it. That's faith. His soul needed everything about my pregnancy and my birth for who he is. He chose it, meaning that it's a collaboration, but it's also has to do with the archetype that's coming in. So he was raised in this frequency, but at the age of 4, I was also told by this woman, this is quite deep, but when she came and I was holding him as a baby, the one who showed me that the mother was fully anchored, had fully meshed into my field, she said, your son was a teacher to you in another lifetime. She said it's very important for his soul that you carry out your mission. She said that as she was leaving. I'll never forget her standing. We had this black and white tiled floor. It was an old kitchen with all the original stuff. It was this quaint old farmhouse. She was leaving out the back wooden door and she turned and said, your son was your teacher in another lifetime. It is very important that you follow through and complete this mission. He's connected to it as well. And I had I didn't process all of that. I wrote it down. I knew, my inner self knew exactly what was being said, but I'm a mother. I had to raise him as my little baby son and have nothing else. I raised him in the appropriate mother-son relationship where I'm his mom, he's my son, but I did teach him. He taught me too. I mean, those of you who studied with me a lot know that he spoke other languages. He wrote down other alphabets. He told me one time, he would go into an altered state before he'd fall asleep at night. And one time he told me about how he came down here, but he had work in another place and he was conflicted about it as a human being. It was pretty wild. The things that he also told me that he knew me in this world, but we spoke a different language and it was another time. And he said he carried me off a volcano that was erupting. He told me this in an altered state one time when he was falling asleep. And he said, I see it. And he said, we're speaking a different language. And these are just details that are really special, but they're part of this whole work with fertility. So when he was 4 years old, we were talking. We raised him Jewish, and I grew up Catholic. His father is Jewish, but we raised him Jewish, and my work is Kabbalah. And so I've years and years, decades of studying and working in this field of wisdom. So as a child, we started working with the Hebrew alphabet and working with the spherical understanding on a very, very deep level. So he was already, versed in this wisdom. But at the age of 4, I was teaching him something that I had been taught. And it was about his planets, because about the planetary blueprint of his own soul. And so we were talking about the planet. He already had everything was about the planets. Everything was about the pentagram. He was a pretty far out kid. And he's born in Capricorn. He had a deep relationship with the planets and especially in Pluto, very strongly with Pluto. But we were talking one day, and I was teaching him a very specific thing in Kabbalah about his planets, and he was 4 years old, and he looked at me so seriously. He was standing up. I'll never forget. He said, "Mom," he said, "those are my planets." He said, "You are right. They are my planets." He said, "But all the planets live inside my body." He said, "All of them." And then he said, "But when I was born, I came from the sun." He said, "I was born through the sun." He said, "I remember." And he was 4 years old. So this would have been probably around 2009. I was still working with this other teacher at that time in my mantric training. I would meet with him one-on-one. And I'll never forget, we were finishing up a session and he was just doing some busy work. And I said, "Oh, I wanted to tell you." I said, "My son," I said, I was teaching him his planets. And I said, he said, "Yes, Mom, those are my planets, but all the planets are inside." I said, "But then he went on to tell me, Mom, I was born through the sun." And I'll never forget, this man turned to me and he stopped and he said, "What did he say?" And I said, and I told him, and then he said, "How old is he?" And I told him he had met him one time, and he said, "Yes." He said, "That's my kind of kid." He said, "Yes." So these correspondences are not correspondences that have been like premeditated or pre-planned. These are revelations that come. So the correspondence with the sun, my son was born through Capricorn. Capricorn births spirit into matter. It births the Christ force into matter. Later, it was only later that I found out that Yaakov, or Jacob, is the sun on the tree of life. It's the sphere of Tiferet, or the sphere of the solar Christ force, the sphere of, even in religion, the sphere of the Christ that is crucified and resurrects. That is a specific frequency that comes through the sphere, and he had that name as well. So these are some of the very powerful correspondences if you understand why this work has just been deepening and deepening. After this stage in my own life, I would not be finished, but would continue to go through some very, very powerful times that continued to give birth to the wisdom and the language and the correspondences that we work with here. So I have some formal training Kabbalistically, and obviously I've been working with astrology from a very young age, and have deep connections to some of the Gnostic texts as well. But the cosmic feminine stream art of the feminine has been lived, meaning when we teach something here, it's gone through a very specific process, and that's what is beginning to accomplish the great art for the age of Venus and the age of the true harmony of masculine and feminine in our world that we all dream of. We dream of it because we know it, from the sound current of the light around us to the conceiving, to the divine relationship and sacred union of the mother and the father that must be reclaimed, because it's everything. In my case of my son and of me being a mother, I got to experience the very height of the mysteries in motherhood, and yet also got to experience the darkest reality of betrayal in the underworld at the same time. I use this as an archetypal correspondence, obviously, not making claims, but the Christ is at the pinnacle of his work on the planet at the very moment that he is crucified. He's at the highest point before regeneration. And it's at that point that he receives the greatest punishment. So we work with the female crucifixion as the crucifixion of the heart in love. That's the work of Art of the Feminine, which I've gotten to experience in different archetypal levels now. Everything from the divine feminine at the foot of the cross to the mysteries that unfold after the resurrection, to even the conception, I mean, with Archangel Gabriel, the Annunciation, all of these, to Pentecost as the Whit Sun, the Holy Spirit, the receiving of the tongues of fire, which is what is right now, up into Magdalene's feast day and transubstantiation through Lion's Gate. The mysteries are playing out only when we can comprehend them. This is our true blueprint. So this stream, the contribution this is the age of the heart that we're entering into. Eden is the heart. I once did a video called the Garden of Eden in the Heart, something about the mysteries of the garden. It's in the Art of the Feminine podcast. This is the heart. We lost the heart when we lost love, when we lost knowledge of our own essence, our own fertility, our own desire force, our own etheric energies, our own Mother Mary, our own Mary Magdalene that live within each and every human being, those aspects of the feminine. The serpents of lust and the serpents of wisdom we work with in Light Body Tantra, which we'll be talking about during Lilith in the next video. So let me just ask how we can wrap this up. If there's anything else, I ask that this all be held in sacred space. These words were meant to be spoken of at the solstice. It's summer solstice for me. It's the whole high holy day of the Divine Mother, the literal pregnant mother. So Art of the Feminine, it's also a special time in my cosmic cycle where I'm in the energy of the sun after my birthday that falls during the summer solstice. And Art of the Feminine came into some very powerful work at the time of this solstice. And so that's why I share the work of fertility held in this container of solar Venus. This is the direction that we're heading in, but we have work ahead of us. The most important thing I want to end this on is faith. Pistis, Sophia, faith and wisdom. It's the times when I look at my life, the times when the greatest miracles, archetypes, and initiations came. I wasn't trying. It was when I was living and even doing fertility rituals for people I didn't even know. There was no mind, the mind, it was the higher mind, it was the heart, it was the artist that was just going and doing. But also in my own, we'll do Lilith next. We're talking about Lilith in this one, but we're going to talk about Lilith. In my own chart, I have Lilith. Well, my sun is on the star of Algol, right on it. It's the evilest star in the zodiac, and it's called Lilith. It's also Medusa. So I came in with my sun on top of Lilith. It's considered one of the most hardest degrees in the zodiac to be born. And so I had that. It's in Taurus too. And then other things. But my Lilith is in an exact square with Chiron as well. And I have Lilith in the sign Cancer, the sign of the woman, the mother. And it's in the 11th house, which is community and even spiritual community. It's the house of Aquarius, really. The 11th house, but it's in Cancer, in my personal 11th house. Understanding Lilith, we have no solar Venus until Lilith reclaims her rightful energy. And that's why we work so deeply with her. Her mysteries are profound. And I specifically came to carry them. I'm born on top of Lilith. And my Mars actually is on top of the great attractor in Sagittarius retrograde, which is a key point for Mars because I had to really work with Mars. So my personal natal Mars is right on the great attractor in Sagittarius. And there's other astrology is amazing because once you understand your higher astrology or lower astrology, you begin to make sense. And then you correspond it with your life. It's really profound. So I just want to take a moment. We're going to finish with the light body sun. We didn't do it. So let's see. Oh boy, this is a long video. I will timestamp it so you can come back to it. So light body sun is this ritual. I'm going to shorten it, but we'll be doing it again. This is the ritual I did every time I ever walked on stage as an actress. I was just looking at some of my roles that I played because I put them in my about section on my website. So I was writing down some of the roles I played. I got to play Lady Macbeth in the Shakespeare play Macbeth, which is a profound role of a Lilith character. And I got to play Lady Macbeth. Also, there's some other, I got to play Tamora and Titus Andronicus, another Shakespeare play. Christine and Miss Julie. There's just, it's so fun looking back now at different, I got to play Electra in a Greek tragedy, Electra, when I was acting. These all hold deep, deep, deep codes for our planet. So before I would go on to play these roles live, I learned this, I first got this there was a teacher I had from Stanford. She had gone to graduate school and done an MFA in acting, and she taught me the seeds of this, and then it became light body sun and light body yoga. So whenever you need to know the fullness of you, who you are, this is the Chariot mysteries. This is the light body chalice of Venus. You connect with your inner sun and your heart. We often do the inner sun in the heart, the inner sun in the earth, and the cosmic core. This is a little different. You're connecting to your inner sun, just bowing inward. And now you begin to sense the sun above you. So you are in your own personal sun, your inner sun, but you start to feel the cosmic currents from the sun. You start to make contact with it. You look inward and you realize that sun is harmonizing with your sun, and it starts to speak to it when you allow it. This is your presence of I am, and this is real. This is how it works. And so now you just begin to slowly look up and make contact with the sun above you. And you see it in its vastness, in its glory, in its divine light, in its pulsation. The sun is the embodiment of that cosmic light that we were talking about earlier. It's a condensed form of the entire light of creation. And it's so big, even though it's condensed. As you see the sun now, you just begin, you're going to reach up and you're going to become a chalice. At that time that I was doing it, I didn't even have the language. I was doing it as an actress. I didn't even know I was a chalice, but you're a chalice at 60 degrees. And you begin to feel the sun recognizing you, because the eye in which you see the sun is the same eye in which the sun sees you. It's a two-way relationship. And so now, as you begin to see the sun, it starts to descend towards you. It's like, just imagine like a great big beach ball, but it's the sun up there. It starts to slowly move towards you. Now, in meditation, when I would be backstage in the wings, I would be doing this in the dark, and I would imagine it, and your fingertips your fingertips are the sensors of your meridians. They start to sense the sun, and now it's getting closer and closer, and you're beginning to have this deep, deep reverence that God or Goddess is coming towards you. Pretty soon, it comes so close that it's making contact with your fingertips. The rays, you can feel them. And again, when you do this on your own. You can take your time. I would take a couple minutes with it. As you feel it, like this golden Eucharist or angelic host above you, you begin to slowly receive the sun into your auric field. It begins to descend into you as you open your arms out. You become into the Vitruvian position, which is the position of the pentagram, and you begin to realize that this heavenly body is integrating into your own field until it has come all the way in and taken over your whole system, your heart, your chakra, your aura. And now just sitting for a moment, realizing the sun has become you, and you have become the light of the sun, the Christ force, the solar Christic force. This is what all great archetypes in the mysteries are revealing in different ways at different times for different dispensations of where humanity is at. But for each one of us, this is such a simple ritual. When I talked for a long time, so when we do it again, we'll give it its just time. But this is summer solstice. This is the Divine Mother coming into my own field as the radiant, glorious solar feminine. We prepare the chalice and she comes into us. We have to create that vessel and we have to have faith. We have to believe. And I tell you, before you're getting out, ready to walk out in front of a lot of people, you're really eager to believe that that light's going to come into you because you know you need it and you want it and you know it will serve everybody. If you shine, when you're in a production, if you shine, the audience receives from it. In the same way, if you shine on this planet Earth, the audience is blessed by your shining. Now, this doesn't mean arrogance. This is Leo energy and it's Lionsgate energy. It doesn't mean arrogance, but it means faith, trust, wisdom, truth. I encourage you to go forward from this very long lecture. And if you take anything with you, start to understand how it is to live clean by living in faith, by embracing human darkness, meaning but take it as it comes. But start to purify your vision, purify your words, think twice about certain things and reevaluate, and then let it flow. Then trust. There's periods where we just have to trust and just go about our business. But listen, you want to hear the small, still voice that gives you that feeling that we talked about. It's subtle. And if you can't tune into the subtle energies, you'll miss it. It's there all the time, but we're so drowned out with technology, with the world, with gossip, with so much stimulation, information at rates we never dreamed of, coming at us from every which direction. And what is sacrificed? Human relationships, for the most part. We have to be human to claim the mysteries of solar Venus. It's our humanity and our organic humanness that makes us a receptive vessel. We've talked a lot about transhumanism and AI, and all of these things are kind of altering, not kind of, they are altering our state. We need to think long and hard moving forward or receive the impulse. There will be things we have to work with and integrate, and we're meant to, but the specifics of that are being revealed. And it's this family of the light, of the Elohim, that is holding the potential that we can seed for the next race, the sixth race, which means this next age that we're entering. And 6 is the number of Venus. It's the number of the heart, the number of the Star of David, the 6-pointed star. This is the age of Venus. This is what she has told us in these teachings. It's the goddess epoch. Does that mean it's only feminine and only woman? Not at all. It means that this is the age when humanity in the new earth gets to live in the heart with the true teachings, in the spirit of community, real community, not just lip service. That when this is what we said, never try to be someone else. When you are sounding your note, there is no competition. If you think about the symphony of August Rush, you cannot, when you're playing your note, you are a star. You are literally a star. Generate what's coming from within you. And if you are working with someone who we're all blessed at certain times with teachers or this or that, make sure that what you receive, you can shine light on, or that you can honor always. The code of becoming connected to the divine feminine spiritual hierarchies is our integrity, because this world will not make it without that. If there, that saying, I think it's in the Bible, like if there's 12 good people, getting through the kingdom of heaven is like walking through the eye of a needle. But, at one point, I think the scripture said, if there was only 12, that's true. So be one of those people. Why not? Why not have it be you? We all are, but this is the call from the masters at this time to all who have the ears to hear and the eyes to see. That being said, I bow to you on this solstice. I bow to all of you in the Southern Hemisphere. I'm going to take a peek down. Make sure to go to artofthefeminine.com if you're interested in the work. I activated the pages. Please follow this channel. There's a story behind all of it and the pace of my work and why it is what it is. But I really ask you to, with people who can appreciate this and hear it, please share and let people know about these videos. If you have the appropriate place, you can share them. But yes, please give the video a thumbs up and leave comments. Certain comments that I won't go into the depth of things that aren't meant to be discussed in a comment section. So every now and then that happens. But I do see the comments. And if it's something I'm not able to have a back and forth with in a comment section, I bring it here. And 2 videos from now, I have a file of questions for a Q&A. And I know you've been asking for so long. We're going to have just a Q&A where we get to really interact. And I already have the best questions in the world waiting in this file. It's been sitting there for the past couple of years. So we will do a real Q&A as well, where it's super interactive. But until then, I hope these videos are serving you. And they will be time stamped in the next couple of days. I'm going to take a peek down. I've been checking out the light because I have a different light. Okay. I bow to you. Oh, thank you. She just said your starry is so validating and so holy. Thank you for receiving that. It is very safe. Like the things I spoke today I could only speak them because it's solstice. Those words would not be casually given. It's a very big deal that even that my teachers were allowing these words to be spoken, because the field is pretty discordant right now. So, and these are really sacred truths and words. So I thank you for being capable of, not being capable, being holding enough love to receive the higher mysteries. All right. Okay. I'm just going to take a quick peek. It was so nice to see all of you here. This was amazing. It was amazing to be here. It's kind of surprising how long I can talk, but I really enjoy it. Next, we're doing Lilith. Lilith has been written for like months. It's so powerful. Lilith is one of our archetypes because I had to carry Lilith in. I had to carry it in my field, which means I had to transmute a lot of dark through my own story. I have more personal story. Boy, there's a lot of good things that really hold the codes that I'll be sharing. Okay, I think that's it. I think I'm gonna close out. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. I'm not sure when the next video will be, but make sure to subscribe and hit notifications. It's not gonna be a month this time. It's gonna be actually either a week or 2 weeks for sure. So that being said, all the blessings in the world. May the Elohim fill your heart. May your Venus, your Venusian force, merge into sacred union with the Christic principle. May they be one. The Christ plus Venus is the Holy of Holies. May you know this. May the Holy Spirit work through your words, your eyes, what you see, what you touch. I know there's a lot of artists here. May the solar Venus flow through your touch, your fingertips, your creative imagination. And to that, I bow to you with amen, amen, amen. So be it, so it is, and it is done. Until we meet again, namaste. Huge blessings to everybody, and thank you for being here. All the comment section will be open underneath. So if you wanted to say something in the chat and I didn't look down, feel free to come back. Until we meet again, huge love.